plenty of new names, plenty of new liveries, and a brand new track list to boot as well, and including a lovely new intro that you would have just seen as well. All of that is new. However, the frenetic and furious action of the Simsport GT3 Championship will be absolutely the same as it has been over the last 6 seasons. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming along on this beautiful Sunday evening. We are at one of the most iconic tracks in world motorsport. We're here at the Silverstone GP circuit for this round number 1 of season 7 of the Simsport Racing GT3 Championship. Last time out, Robbie Stapleford of Zancho Simsport was the man who took the plaudits and took over 1,000 points in the 6-race championship back in season 6, and he is back again looking to retain his crown with a nice shiny number 1 on his McLaren 720 to boot. Dean Riley and Chris Pinchbeck and Adam Misalovic have retained their positions on the grid, and they will be looking to claw that man back. However, the reigning champion does have a teammate to assist him this year as well, and I'm sure that teammate wanted to get into the thick of the action as well. My name is David Wressell, and I'm delighted to be commentating on tonight's action that we've got coming ahead for you. A 20-minute qualifying session followed by a 90-minute race with a mandatory pit stop, as has become the norm in this Simsport Racing Championship. And a member of the team who is not necessarily new to the commentary side of things, but new to the SSR spirit of things, is my co-commentator for the evening, Toby Owen. Toby, thank you very much, my friend, for coming along this evening. I'm hoping we're going to be in for a pretty good evening of racing.
Yes, indeed. Good evening, David. Good evening, everyone, and thank you for the warm welcome. Well, the weather outside my window is looking just as fine as the weather on track at Silverstone this evening, isn't it? We are set for ideal track conditions to get this season kick-started.
Absolutely. Although we are hearing, Toby, interestingly enough, that it is raining in the servers. That's going to make things a little bit more interesting. We do like the element of jeopardy.
That's a typical British summer, isn't it? We look outside and think, what lovely weather, and then the weather forecast deals us a curveball. So Rain on the server. Well, that's something to talk about, isn't it, David?
Absolutely indeed, Toby. But the good thing is I can 100% confirm there will be more than 2 laps of racing this evening. As I said before, there will be 90 minutes in total with that mandatory pit stop. And it's slightly different to the way we did things last season. It was a bit of a curveball in the sense of we did limited tyre sets, whereas the guys just had to make 1 pit stop. Didn't have to necessarily change tyres, but they were given the option to. We've gone back to the old tried and tested. And with an open pit window, Toby, it certainly makes the strategy call a little bit more interesting throughout the race, doesn't it?
Absolutely, and I think that's one of the things that I'm really going to be watching for. Is anyone going to go for that sort of high-risk strategy of stopping really early and getting their pit stop out the way? But then you are at the mercy of the weather somewhat, aren't you? So we'll see how that pans out.
Absolutely. Whatever the case is going to be, it's sure going to be a fantastic evening. And I'm personally hoping we see a bit of changeable weather, because that will always spice things up rather nicely. Qualifying will get underway in just a few moments' time. In the first instance, though, we've got a fancy new graphic to show you, which talks you round the lap that we're going to be going around in a short period of time. So we'll take a closer look at where we're going to be racing tonight. As I said earlier, yet another iconic venue in the motorsport world. Starting at the old school pit lane in this Silverstone GP circuit, so we're running a slightly different layout in the GT3s as you would normally expect in the likes of the F1 and the MotoGP. The first sector has some of those fast and demanding corners we know and love, that Maggots, Beckett's complex, including Copse, which is going to be a very, very frenetic first corner for these guys to be going into off the rolling start. The second sector, we pass through the F1 pit gantries and the Hamilton Straight, where we then head into the newer part of the lap where we've got the farm, village and loop corners. And then as we go back down towards the back end of the lap, we go down the Wellington Straight, which then lines back up with the old school elements of the track again. We run through Brooklands, Luffield and Woodcote to complete a 3.661 mile journey around this renowned Silverstone circuit. We're going to be looking, well, we would have been looking, Toby, at times, I think, in qualifying of around the 1:56 mark. However, as it's not dry this evening, as we're understanding, that's going to be a little bit slower. And, as we always say, rain is forever the leveller, so it could be the chance for someone who is not necessarily expected to be at the front end of things to spring up a surprise.
Yes, indeed. I mean, and another thing to think about is when that rain's going to fall, how it's going to affect the qualifying. I think we're now pulling up a hot lap of Silverstone in the dry, so we'll be able to see what it should look like when you are flat out And David, please talk us around.
Absolutely. We're on board with the reigning champion, Robbie Stapleford, canes it into Copse for the first corner. Like I say, it's an iconic one. We hopefully won't have any Hamilton Verstappen incidents throughout the race this evening as they go into that, I mentioned before, that infamous Beckett's and Chapel complex, going down through the gears, only going down to third gear. The downforce in those GT3 cars is quite something. See Robbie tipped, jumping between traction control maps. He goes through the corners to try and get absolute maximum out of it. He'll be doing that to full effect this evening, although maybe not in the wet weather. Down the hanger straight and into Stowe, one of the heaviest stopping zones on the circuit. Again, a chance for overtaking, even with such a fast sweeping corner. As they then head down, you can see the F1 pit lane entry on your right hand side there as he hammers on the anchors into Vale and then in through Club and onto the appropriately named Hamilton Straight, flat out as you come out through here, just bouncing off the edge of grip as you go through that corner and up towards Abbey and Farm. Like I say, going into the newer part of the lap now, it just hits a little bit of curve on the outside. It's again as flat as you can. It's such an aggressive line through there. This McLaren really does stick in those higher speed corners. It's just being forced down to the ground by the downforce available and into Village and the loop. It's the very difficult corner, the loop. I do find myself, it's a bit of a blind one. You just want to hit the apex. You've got those giant sausage curves on the inside that will just swallow you up as it heads onto the Wellington Straight, again heading towards another overtaking zone. Just understand that this lap is a 1:56.3, so it tells you the pace that our reigning champion is bringing into it. Hard on the anchors, trail braking into Brooklands, where he gets it switched across and back into Luffy. You see him just jumping up and down the gears just to get the front end of that McLaren 720S turned in, out through Woodcut and onto the start-finish straight once more. He's going to take as straight a line as possible, cutting as much of the track as he can without invalidating the lap, and there you go, across the line, like I say there. A 1:56.3, which Toby is absolutely ludicrous, and it shows you the pace that man has got behind that car, behind that wheel at the moment. I believe we're now going to head down onto the circuit as we're going to see, as you see, heavens have opened and we're on board with the reigning champion himself, Mr. Robbie Stapleford, going through Maggots and Beggars. It's a little bit more slippery than it was earlier, Toby, on that hot lap, isn't it? Goodness me, the rain is coming down and it's sliding all over the show.
Between what we've just seen and this, and the biggest thing here is, of course, you have to take so much curb normally in the dry to make those hot laps. Every tenth of a second counts, but in these conditions you just cannot take the curb. They are so treacherous and so slippery that you really ride them at your own peril. So the optimum line in the wet is slightly different than you would see in the dry.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's one of those, isn't it, where you've got to be so careful. In these GT3 cars, there's quite a bit of steering input, isn't there, where you've got to go through those corners, and like I say, if you go a little bit too much, just step the back end out. It's not what you want to be seeing. Got Kieran Vidago on your screen here, driving for the Simsport Racing Apex team. He was actually in a 10-hour race at Silverstone here yesterday on ACC with the likes of Jimmy Broadbent, Jardier, and to name a few. Unfortunately, was caught up in the wars and had a couple of hardware issues throughout the race as well. So not the way he would have wanted to happen. I'm sure after this evening, he'll be wanting to spend a little bit of time away from this circuit in Northampton, just off the edge of the M1, I'm sure, especially now it's raining as well.
Yes, he's taking a fairly sensible line through these corners. You can see on the entry there, keeping well off that curb, and I mean, you can take a bit of curb on the inside. It's because the wheels there are unloaded. It's where you get on the power. On the exit curbs, you want to be avoiding them. And you can see he is doing that. He's running up to the white line, but not beyond, which is where you would take a lot of curb in the dry. So he's giving himself plenty of leeway on these opening laps, just searching out where the grip is on this track. Just, of course, getting his brakes and his tyres up to temperature as well, as I'm sure is everyone. We've got the initial marker set down as a 2:06, and that immediately beaten by Robbie Stapleford at a 2:05.5. laying down the benchmark, and I'm sure we'll see that drop further, but over a second faster than the next quickest on his opening lap. That is a statement of intent, isn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, if you're going to set up the marker as the reigning champion, you've got to do it in style, and Robbie's done that with aplomb there, even considering he was sliding through Maggots and Beckett's a few moments ago. So, like I say, still 15 minutes left to qualify, so like you said, Toby, there's still plenty of time for these times to go down. I'm sure a lot of these will be exploratory style laps, like the likes of Povulitis, Dean Riley and co. They're going to be, I'm sure they will continue to get time down as the qualifying session goes on. And I can see at the top the rain is due to get a bit better as well, so it could potentially make things a little bit better. And this is a car that I love the look of. This is Rich Smith in the number 76 Golf-style Aston Martin. I was a big fan of that on the McLaren earlier this year when they drove in the Monaco GP, but that on that Aston Martin looks absolutely stunning, doesn't it?
Absolutely. It's one of those iconic liveries that will look good pretty much on any car you put it on. So, it's great to see it out on track and, yes, suiting that Aston very nicely indeed.
Absolutely. Rich Smith, good showing last season. Wanted a little bit more pace, and I know he's been thick in the practice in the off-season trying to get things back into. He's got one of the Pulse Simsport cars, in fact, two of the Pulse Simsport cars behind him on track at the moment. They're just coming into Brooklands, like I say, just getting a little bit of tire on the inside there. Like I said, they're not going to cause too much of an issue at the moment. You can already see the spread of lap times just while people are getting used to things. Runs a little bit wider than Kieran Vidago did on his flying laps. We'll see if that makes any difference. But we're going to jump over to Robbie Stapleford, who's following. I think that's Regan Mitchell in the other Simsport Racing Apex Ferrari, the number 69 machine. He's coined that number. I think he finds it rather amusing, as I'm sure a lot of people do. He's just following through. Nice little draft for Robbie as he comes through. Actually thought it was Vidago he was behind, but he's going to follow him up to the line. He's going to get a nice little toe as he goes down the straight. Gets a little bit quicker, about half a second in total. So he's then extended that gap back up to a second or so in front of the man we were watching a moment ago, which is Rich Smith. So you can see, Toby, those times are starting to tumble and they're starting to close up at the sharp end of the grid.
Absolutely, and I think just the nature of the fact that we've got so many cars out on track, the track is going to be getting better and better with each lap. Of course, people's fuel loads will be coming down, their tyres will be getting warmer. I don't think we've seen the pole time yet. I think we may see the ban on pole, Robbie Stapleford. I think he may well improve his time, but I think there's still time in everyone's laps yet.
Absolutely, as you see, Kaz Dambrowski's is one of the newer names to the Simsport Racing community in the Beaver Grease AMG. I had the chance to drive the AMG recently. Oh, it's a brilliant team name, isn't it? I can't say I'm a fan of the AMG myself. I've driven it once and don't think I'll ever jump into it again. It didn't exactly suit my driving style, but yeah, in the 735, I don't know what it is. I like it when people go for 3-digit numbers on their cars. I don't know what it is. I just think it's something a little bit different. I quite enjoy it. As you see, I think there's a car there escorting to the inside of the newer part of the track, going through Abbey there, elected to skip straight through. As you can see, a couple of the guys up top, Wagner Marquez, Kieran Vidago, both in the pit lane at the moment, staying past Pontius as well. And one person I'm keeping out for, Toby, is Stamenkovic, number 12 car. He is the teammate for Robbie Stapleford this season. I'm hoping it's going to be more of it's not going to be a Valtteri Bottas style thing where he just kind of sits behind. I'm hoping he's going to get stuck into thick things and not just be a rear gunner for the number one driver this year.
No, I mean it's nice for Robbie to have a rear gunner, but I'm sure as well everyone will be out there for themselves. There's everyone at the moment is on equal points as such at the start of the season. Everyone's in with an equal chance of going for that title. So unless there is a compelling reason to support your teammate, I'm sure everyone will be going for their own glory.
Oh, absolutely. You see Rasmus Christensen, one of the many Pulse Simsport Racing drivers in the session in the season this evening. He went second. And then he was just pipped by his other Ferrari teammate in Pulse Simsport, which was Jonathan Savilic, who's gone half a second behind Robbie Stapleford at the moment. Mantis Povilaitis coming at the Hamilton straight at the moment in the very appropriately numbered 911, the Porsche GT3 car in the no top speed racing, which is again ironic given the we all know what the Porsche is like in a straight line in ACC. It's not necessarily the slipperiest thing, but it does do pretty well in the rain. So expect this man to be doing some pretty good things if the rain stays.
I've been told it does do pretty well in the rain. It's also very easy to spin in the rain, so it's one of those cars that if you can tame it, you will reap the benefits. But I'm sure in these conditions that Porsche is quite a handful.
Absolutely. I mean, it's a handful in any weather condition, to be completely fair to you. Without the right setup, if you get lift off as soon as you lift off, you turn it too much, you're in a wall. And speaking of someone who's particularly not a fan, and I've seen him driving the Porsche 4 as he goes a little bit adrift through the Maggots Beckett's Chapel complex is Chris Pinchbeck. He's in the sister Golf Aston Martin machine alongside Rich Smith. He's a little bit further down the timing board at the moment as opposed to his teammate, but still got time. And here is one of the teammates, Zancho Simsport driver, Milos Stamenkovic. Apologies for that. I will never make that mistake again, I'm sure. And like you were saying, Toby, you mentioned it, they're on 0 points, so everyone's got a chance to kind of put their stall out. But also, Sancho Simsport don't necessarily pick slow drivers, so I'm very intrigued. He's an unknown quantity to me. I've not seen Milos drive in the sim before, so I'm very, very keen to see how he fares, and I'm hoping he's going to put the cat amongst the pigeons, along with everyone else who I know is putting their stall out to try and take Robbie off that top step of the podium for this season.
Yes, I mean, no time as yet, and there's a couple of drivers who have yet to set a time, which is quite interesting as we just see somebody else go. I mean, obviously, we've got some people waiting for the best conditions, but equally, I'm sure there are a few people out there who have been trying, but just not quite finding their rhythm yet, or maybe invalidating due to track limits. Over half the session gone, and there's a yellow flag somewhere on circuit, which is now clear. But I think people are finding these conditions quite tricky, as evidenced by the fact that we've still got a number of drivers yet to set a lap time.
Absolutely, including Milos Stovenkovic, who we've seen. That was an outlap for him, so now he's going to be on to what appears to be what is his first, at least valid, flying lap of the session. But like you said, Toby, the rain does appear to be dissipating slightly. You can see the track status and the weather forecast in the top corner of your screen. Not necessarily the windiest of evenings at the Silverstone circuit today, but it does look like the rain is due to disappear a small amount. Now, I assume that's going to pass over into the race as well. So it might be that we do get some changeable conditions in the sense that it's damp at the start of the race, and that's going to throw a bit of a spanner in the works to those who've been working on dry setups over the last few weeks, because throw rain in there and that completely changes things. Miles Dixon now in the number 94 McLaren 720S in the sister Pole Simsport team. So they've got two teams running the championship this season, one in the McLaren 720, one in the Ferrari, so we'll be able to see how they get on. You can always see you've got HD and JR, I think the other one is. I'm not sure what they stand for.
No,
but
and I'm very used to seeing these Pulse cars, and particularly Miles, running in the Bentley. So interesting to see that he's gone for the McLaren this season.
Yeah, exactly. It's normally him and Simon Crane who do some pretty decent things. Obviously, Simon Crane being a season winner of season 5 a few years ago. I've commentated on a few of his races. He's absolutely a world and away off anyone else. He did a fantastic job that in a couple of seasons ago. So it's nice to see a few of them back on the grid again. And like you say, Miles Dixon is by no means a slow driver. I had the pleasure of driving with him in a touring car race of the day, and he is not exactly a slouch in any sort of car for that matter, let alone
he'll race anything as quickly as he can. And he races remote control cars actually in real life. It's
I've seen
a very
that.
expensive hobby. Is race cars about as expensive as a road going car? You could buy a normal car for the amount of money that Miles has spent on his radio control car, which is impressive but staggering at the same time.
Yeah, I can imagine that doesn't sit well with any partner in his life. I'm sure that will be something that's frowned upon, to say the least. You see Milos Stovenkovic going with a 2:07.1, so he's got his banker lap on board.
Yeah,
6.5 minutes.
Doesn't give him long, really. I mean, 6.5 minutes sounds like a lot, but with a lap that is over 2 minutes, that's giving him 3 laps as a minimum, possibly 4 to get an improved time in. So, you know, it's a lap where you can run wide or just get a bit leery through some of the corners and lose time. So it doesn't give him long to chase that optimum lap time, does it?
No, exactly. And then another man who's new to the GT3 season, but not a newbie to the SSR community, Cameron Fife in the CFM Aston Martin.
It's a gorgeous livery again.
It is. He does a very good job on his liveries, I've got to say, and he always carries that same kind of like a merge where it goes from that red to black at the back of the car. It always looks really slick no matter what car he drives. He's normally used to the GT4s, so he'll be quite pleased, I'm sure, to have a little bit more downforce available to him this season. And he's not exactly been optimistic, but I know that Cam's got some pace, and I'm sure, given the right chance, and especially this evening, I'm sure he'll be the kind of person who could put a bit of an upset on the cards.
What he lacks in experience, he makes up for in enthusiasm, and sometimes that's all you need, particularly in a day like this when it could be pretty open in the race with the changeable conditions. Those who dare will either end up in the barrier or they'll make big gains, and I'm sure Cam will be hoping for the latter.
Absolutely, as he goes steaming through Copse there. Very, very cautious approach going out of there. Of course, if you do go too far wide, if you dip your 4 wheels off the track there, then you are going to be invalidating the lap, and that's the last thing you want to do this close to the end of qualifying and right at the start of a lap as well, because you're just going to have to go around the entire thing again and just wait until you've started the lap again. So it's not ideal, to say the least. He's 3 and a bit seconds off of current pole sitter Robbie Stapleford. You see Ollie Henley coming down the Wellington straight down towards Brooklands in one of the Pulse HD Simsport cars, and he's got one of either Stamenkovic or Stapleford sitting in the wings behind him, so giving them a nice little tow down the back straight, which is always nice. But yeah, at the moment, there's a bit of a spread of times across the board, isn't there, Toby? But I think we can attribute that to the weather, can't we? Because I'm sure if it does dry up, I'm sure things will start to close up quite rapidly.
Yes, yeah. I mean, I'm just keeping an eye, actually, David, on those who are currently in the pits. If they want to get another 2 flying laps in, they need to be leaving now, or in fact, they might have already missed the boat, because it'll take them more than 2 minutes to get round. And of course, then it's a 2-minute lap. So anyone currently in the pits will only have another 1 flying lap in them, if indeed they choose to come out at all.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a risk versus reward sort of thing, isn't it? And especially because the track is supposedly getting a bit drier. Well, I say it's getting dry. It's not getting drier, but the rain is starting to loosen a little bit. And
we're seeing more people take a bit more curb on the exit. So you assume either the tyres are up to temperature, or some of that water has been cleared, and it's now a little bit safer to put your tyres over those traditionally very slippy curbs.
Yeah, absolutely. And one thing that ACC is, those who've driven ACC before are very familiar of, is the operating window for tyre temperatures is extremely small and can get very fiddly when you're driving in a race in a dry or a slightly dampening circuit such as this, because if you put them slightly wrong, then they're completely off for the next sort of 5 or 6 laps where you go through it. So I'm not surprised. Wouldn't have been surprised if a handful of people had gone back in, gone back out again, changed the tyre pressures, gone back in, and so on and so forth. You can see how busy the track is at the moment. That's Adam Misano we saw there as Mantis Povolitis goes up to 3rd on the grid with a 2:05.4.
Solid time. You said the Porsche might be good in the wet, and it's certainly looking that way. I mean, Silverstone is such a power circuit. It's all in the dry normally about carrying straight line speed. So the rain is really working in the Porsche's favour here.
Ooh, big snap there as he goes through Magnus Beckett, though. That's going to certainly lose at least a couple of tenths, I'd imagine, as he gets a little bit sideways. Manages to hold on to it, though, fortunately, and he might get he probably won't get a tow, actually, if that AMG in the distance. I can't imagine that would be the case. Highest AMG at the moment is Dombrowski's in that 735 Beaver Grease, which is 2.
Rich Smith's just gone 2nd.
Yeah, it's all very close behind Robbie Stapleford.
Yes.
At the moment. Which is something we've become accustomed to. However, I think that will close down over time. And plus, there are still some very quick people to put a lap time in. We've got Simon Wilkes, number 6 car on your screen now, as part of the Simsport Racing team, partnered up with Adam Misalovic again, like they did in the GT4s a season or 2 ago. He's quick. Adam is quick in the Ferrari. We've got Regan Mitchell still to put a time in. I know that we've got the likes of, like you say, got Chris Pinchbeck and co. All of these guys are very, very quick. So I'm sure that it won't be an 8/10 gap by come the end of this session, which only has a minute and a half left to go.
Yeah, and I mean, you said that everyone's fairly close behind Robbie Stapleford. That's absolutely the case. If you look from 2nd through to 12th, 10 cars or 11 cars, they're separated by only a second over the course of a 2-minute lap. So it is insanely close behind Robbie Stapleford, and we'll just see in the race if they squabble amongst themselves, or whether anyone can make a break and just work together to try and stay with that leading McLaren. That's all to come in the race, of course. We don't know quite how people are going to line up. I'm sure we will see some times tumble in the final lap of qualifying, which most people will now have started. But yeah, as we look, we've now got somebody else has just improved, so it's now down to 13th place, covered by a second. So yeah, really, really close.
Absolutely. It's what you'll come to appreciate before long, Toby, in the SSR GT3 Championship. It's always extremely close, which is always good fun. Jonathan Seville, our 3rd place man in the 97 Pulse Simsport machine, that Ferrari 488 GT3 car, going into club at the moment. Going into Vale rather, and into club now. And you see a couple of people have gone back into the pits. So Simon Wilkes, Adam Misalovic, Dave Hedges. So Wilkes did improve. He's gone up into the top 10. As you've just seen, another guy, Milos Stamenkovic, has just gone up into P5. So he's gotten within a second of teammate Robbie Stapleford by 1,000th of a second. So take it wherever it comes. Povolitis has gone back into the pit, so he's not going to improve. So it's a best of 4th place for him at the moment, because Jonathan Seville obviously pipped him into 3rd place. The flag has gone down in this qualifying session. So it is now a case of you're on your final lap, make or break at this point. Robbie Stapleford has got 0.8 of a second in hand. As he comes into Brooklands, I'm sure he's probably got a little bit more time. Otherwise, I'm sure he would have aborted the lap by now. Although he could just be not taking any prisoners and wanting to lay down even more of a marker. He comes through Luffield. I understand he's half a second up at the moment. So this is statement central for the Zancho Simsport man.
With taking pole, he wants to humiliate the rest of the field. Look at that. He couldn't quite dip into the 203s, but the only man in the 204s.
Absolutely. See, Regan Mitchell there went quicker. He's put himself into second place. Jonathan Seville has improved, but hasn't managed to get up ahead of third in the end. So he's dropped down to fourth because of Mitchell going up there. Got Rasmus Christensen on camera at the moment. He's coming through the final corner. He's got Kieran Vidago. We've got Rich Smith still to put a lap in as well. We've got Wagner Marquez and a couple of other drivers as well. But we'll see as Rasmus comes across the line. What's the time going to be? He improves. He doesn't improve. He just missed out by 0.02 of a second on making that time better. Ollie Henley in one of the other pole Simsport machines driving comes in 8th place, just pips Christensen on the line. That was a fantastic lap from him to finish things off. But Toby, in a phrase I'm hoping I'm not going to say too much throughout this season, Robbie Stapleford with quite a big gap at the top of the timing charts in that qualifying session.
Indeed, and I mean we go on about, as I'm sure everyone who watches racing always appreciates. It's great to have a battle for the lead. It's great to have a battle up front, but credit where it's due. Robbie Stapleford has laid down a marker which will be making his rivals quake in their boots, I think. And yeah, we like to see close racing, but we also have to appreciate when we see greatness. And that was a truly great lap to end out the qualifying session there.
Absolutely, yeah. Brilliant stuff from the young man who is, of course, who we mentioned a few times and will continue to mention throughout the season, our reigning champion, of course. And it didn't already all go his way, to be completely honest. He didn't win the first race. He was actually pipped to the post at Catalunya in Season 6 by Luke Whitehead, of all people. And it was a real shame that Luke wasn't able to continue to compete in the season, because I think he would have proved a very interesting adversary to the Zancho Simsport driver. Of course, like we say, he's swapped the number 81 for the number 1, so he really wants to make his presence known on the grid and remind people that he is, in fact, the champion-elect at the moment. But yeah, with 6 races in this season across the next 12 weeks, he's still got, there's plenty of action to come, and I'm sure it won't all go his way. In a couple of weeks' time, we'll head to Paul Ricard on the 19th of September. On the 3rd of October, we'll head over to Misano, and then we'll head over to Snetterton and then Donington, and 4 weeks remaining after that. So a nice little British double header, and you can see there at the bottom, we will fly all the way across to Japan, where we'll finish off. I think quite an appropriate circuit, Toby, to finish off a season. Suzuka, it's always going to be a good one, and yeah, that's quite a good track to finish off on, isn't it, for a season, if I may say so myself.
It is. I mean, it's been a season decider in major international series such as Formula One for many years, and always produces a great atmosphere for racing. I am looking forward to that British doubleheader. I know the British tracks quite well, so tracks like Snetterton and Donington, whilst they might be unfamiliar to some runners, ones that I'm very much looking forward to. Absolutely, I completely agree with you. I know that there's a few people on this grid who are not a fan of the so-called park circuits, but I think they will produce some brilliant and interesting racing no matter what happens. But anyway, we'll turn our focus back to this evening. You see the sun has come out, fortunately for all of those who skipped forward a few hours to 2 p.m. I think it was midday in the qualifying session before. So fortunately, the sun has cleared. It's nice and warm. It's a balmy 23 degrees, not the kind of temperature you'd expect to see in the UK at this time of the year. But Robbie Stapleford lines up on the front row of the grid with Regan Mitchell in a Simsport Racing Apex machine alongside him. Rich Smith and Jonathan Seville make up row 2, with Mantis Povolitis and Milos Stomenkovic on his SSR debut, lining up 5th and 6th respectively. Kieran Vidago and Ollie Henley lining out 7th and 8th with Rasmus Christensen and Aaron Martin Pilkington, who you can see on the right-hand side of your camera on 9th and 10th. We head down through this rather elongated grid, courtesy of our broadcast director Steve Proudley's Simsport Solutions Segway, which he likes to hop out on before the race starts. Fortunately for him, I believe the old school pit straight at Toby at Silverstone is relatively flat, so he's not having to work too hard to get from the front to the back of the grid this afternoon. Yes, it's one of those. It won't make any difference to these GT3 cars, but it's one of those where you don't have to hold the brake when you're on the grid, which is a great advantage when you're doing a standing start. But obviously, we will be doing a rolling start as we always do in these GT3 categories, so that won't make a difference, but it does make things easier for our grid tour.
Absolutely. And one thing that I have been, you have mentioned to me, Toby, of course, is the fact that you've actually raced around Silverstone before. Ahead of this race, we've got a minute and a bit left until Robbie Stapleford leads off the formation lap. Any hints and tips from the mind of Toby Owen that you would expect these guys to look out for this evening, even in these GT3 machines?
Well, these have certainly got a lot more grip than anything I've ever driven around Silverstone, but I think the principles are still the same. It is a very wide track, and there are lots of different lines that you can take into some of the corners. So when you're attacking or defending, you can cover quite a lot of ground. There's a lot of width into some of the corners, and it's impossible to defend everywhere. So I think particularly on the opening lap, when we get some bunching, we might see quite a few inventive lines from people as they look to make overtakes. And you've just got to be a bit careful with that, because there might be cars putting themselves in positions where you wouldn't normally expect them. So everyone's just got to keep an eye on their mirrors, I think, on these opening laps.
Absolutely. It's certainly going to be a feast for the eyes and a feast for the ears, hearing all of this horsepower steaming round Silverstone in a minute or so's time. 90 minutes coming up for you. One mandatory pit stop that has to include a tyre change, an open pit window. So as we mentioned earlier on in the broadcast, strategy is an open book. They've pretty much they have got free rein to do anything they want at this moment in time, because they can pit whenever they need to. If they have an incident at the start, they can pit early. If they want to run it really deep into the race, which is something I know that Regan Mitchell, the man on the right-hand side of the front row, is very, very capable of doing, they can do that as well. So it's going to be very interesting to see how this shapes out in this first race of the GT3 Simsport Championship season number 7.
And as I said at the top of the broadcast, now that we know that the conditions are not changeable, certainly at the start of the race, I would be interested to see if anyone does go for that early pit stop to get it out of the way and just see if they can make those tyres last to the end. It might not give them track position, but it does give them then the ability to sort of pick their moments to make moves and look after those tyres.
Yeah, absolutely. Of course, like I say, a long lap. It's going to be you're talking more minute 57, 58 race pace for the front runners, I would expect.
Yeah.
It's a 3.6 mile circuit. So if you do pit early, like you said, Toby, you are going to have that blessing of a small amount of clear track, to say the least. You've got a fair bit of time to kind of effectively hot lap for the majority of it. You've just got to make sure you try and get into that clear out at the start.
It'll take a bit longer for the leaders to come around to lap traffic. So if you do make an early pit stop and you can come out in free air, you've got a bigger window, if you know what I mean, at the start of the race, where you wouldn't expect to come out with lapped traffic. Although you've still got the rest of the field in front of you, of course.
Absolutely, and it's always fun having to battle through the field. I do find it's quite a fun challenge that you've got. Robbie Stapleford, they'll be hoping he doesn't have such a challenge, and whenever he does come up behind someone, there'll be a nice blue flag waving him through on his way to a comfortable victory. Of course, we're all hoping that won't be the case, and I'm sure it won't be, because he's got plenty of very, very fast people behind him, and rain has disappeared, and we'll start to see the true pace of all these runners. One person who is out of position, Toby, we talked about him a little bit during qualifying, is Miles Dixon down in 18th place. Very interested to see how he's going to get on now that it's dried up. I wonder how his pace will be and whether he'll be able to start making moves and get into the thick of that battle for the top 10 this evening.
Yes, absolutely. You're right. I mean, there's so many drivers on the grid that we're watching. Miles Dixon, we didn't spot him down there, but 18th on the grid. We know he is quicker than that in the dry. So the wet conditions did catch him out a bit, and that was always the gamble, really, of these wet conditions in qualifying. We might have a slightly mixed up grid order. We've seen the guys who you'd expect to see coming near the front in general, but there might also be some other drivers other than Miles who are out of position. So the opening laps will be crucial to see who can make moves through the field and get themselves into good position early doors.
Yeah, absolutely. One of those who is out of position, I would say, as well, is the man ahead of Miles Dixon, which is Dean Riley. Of course, finished second in season 6 last time out. It was closer than expected. It could technically have gone down to the final race. In fact, it did go down to the final race. He pushed him that far. It would have been a case of Robbie would have had to have bombed out entirely and Dean would have won, which I think he finished second in the end. So it wasn't exactly far off, but he is someone who, in the Simsport McLaren is slightly out of position at the number 2 car. However, like you say, he's got a lot of pace, and I'm sure it's just a case they've been caught out a little bit by those adverse weather conditions. I'm sure over the 90 minutes we've got ahead of us, I'm sure he will start to move up the grid, as I'm sure Marcus Hagel, who has a couple of cars behind him in one of the Simsport, in the Pulse Simsport machines, sorry. Yeah, plenty of people slightly out of position, which makes for a lot of interesting events to happen over the next 90 minutes, I've no doubt.
Yeah, and one of the things we've not talked about, and really we don't want to talk about it, we don't really want to see and don't expect to see a lot of contact, but let's not forget this is the first round of a new series. New drivers, some of them in new cars, different conditions from qualifying. It's all a recipe for having a very unpredictable first lap. And when you're stuck in the midfield, around 17th, 18th place, like Dean Riley and Miles Dixon are, that will be on their minds. That is always a risk that there could be some untoward contact happening on the opening laps. So they're really going to need to try and avoid that at all costs.
Absolutely. Hopefully we'll keep it clean throughout the duration of this evening, but Robbie Stapleford leads the grid 33 strong through Woodcote for the final time on this formation lap to get things ready. Like I say, season number 7, round number 1 here at the Silverstone GP circuit. Robbie Stapleford and Regan Mitchell are kicking off things, as you can see, line astern almost, as you wait for the green flag to appear to start off this race and start off this season in earnest. We wait and we wait and we wait, and it'll eventually go, and there you go, we are green here at Silverstone. As you can see, Robbie Stapleford takes the inside line, Regan Mitchell elects to go around the side. You can see the sea of GT3 cars, the roar of all of them going through those first couple of corners into Cox. Regan Mitchell under a bit of pressure from Jonathan Seville. Rich Smith has dropped down the order. I wonder he's gone to, I don't know where he is. It says he's on the timing tower in second, but he's not. Can't see him. He's dropped down to 5th, so Povilaitis gone up to upper position as well. Regan Mitchell under fire from the Pulse Simsport machine of Seville. He's getting all sorts of cross. There's some contact in the background.
That's Miles Dixon, I think. Dixon off, and that's exactly what I feared might happen. No, it's not Dixon. He got the car wrong from a distance, but oh dear, 3 cars facing the wrong direction.
Oh, goodness me, that's one of the Simada Racing drivers, so that is one of either Adam Mazalovic or Simon Wilkes. I think it's Wilkes looking at the timing tower on the left-hand side. Regan Mitchell under fire from a different car now. This time it's Mantis Povilaitis, so I don't know what happened to Seville there, but he's dropped back a little bit. This is all allowing Robbie Stapleford to disappear up the road and say, tutty bye, boys. I'm off up in the distance for a nice leisurely stroll for the next 90 minutes. I'll leave you guys to fight it out for the rest of the positions behind me. Do you see Stamenkovic getting a position? He's up into 5th place. Vidago making some moves, getting through the field. Chris Pinchbeck, just as Jean, Mummy Pinchbeck drops into the YouTube chat, just to see as Chris's Pinch is getting up the order as well. It's all changing, but as we said there, a couple of people who didn't have the run of the mill there was Aaron Martin Pilkington and Simon Wilkes, and one of the other cars as well got caught up and it didn't quite catch who it was. Hopefully, so we'll see a replay of what happened and we can kind of get a bit of an idea as to how they came crossed up as they did.
Yes, it was around that sort of midfield, around the 18th position where it all kicked off. And Miles Dixon actually made a storming start and got himself ahead of all of that madness. He is up to 11th place as we see his teammate Jonathan Seville gaining a position to move himself up into 4th place. And well, it didn't work out quite as well for Dean Riley. He's made some ground, but certainly not as much as Dixon ahead of him. But he did survive that opening lap, which, as I said, was one of the biggest risks. So now his work starts. How far up the order can he get up? How quickly?
Exactly, that's it. And you can see Mantis Povilaitis is someone who's really made a few moves off the start, clearly showing that Porsche isn't a slouch in the dry, with him behind the wheel as well. It's as good as it is in the wet. Stamenkovic sitting in 6th, still Kieran Vidago in 7th, Rasmus Christensen, Chris Pinchbeck and Adam Misalovic round out your top 10. But you can see how close it is, can't you? Look at these guys, they're fighting for 4th on track at the moment. That's giving Mitchell and Povilaitis a chance to break free a little bit. A small gap at the moment, courtesy of a few car lengths and to the tune of around about a second on track. You see a handful of people in the grandstands watching, plenty more watching in the YouTube chat at the moment, and we're hoping you're enjoying the action so far. Already 3 minutes in and a lap and a half, but Robbie Stapleford has managed to claw out a gap of 2.5 seconds to Regan Mitchell behind, so he's going to hopefully try and extend that gap over the next hour and 26 minutes. Rasmus Christensen behind Kieran Vidago, ahead of Chris Pinchbeck, Adam Isalovic, just dropping back behind these guys at the moment. But we're looking at these guys, and one person who's really made some moves at the start, Toby, is the man in the Jaguar of all cars. Definitely not the most commonly chosen car in ACC, but that is Stein Paspon in the 444 car. He's up to 19th of qualifying. So he's a fantastic start to this race as well.
Yeah, where did Stein qualify?
He was somewhere in the mid-20s. He was somewhere in the mid-20s. I wasn't expecting him to qualify too far at the grid, given the Jaguar is not exactly the most the strongest car in any track, really. Let's be honest. But he's got
Pavlovich right up his exhaust at the moment, so we'll see how long that 19th place lasts. But he's obviously avoided the shenanigans on the opening lap to get himself up the order there.
Absolutely. I think we're going to see a replay of the incident for Aaron Martin Pilkington. We'll bring that to you just as soon as we can. We won't get to see what's happening on that one. You see, it's just going to come up now. So as you go through, you can see Aaron Martin Pilkington on the outside and just catches the side of one of the Pole Simsport McLarens there, then gets caught up. That was, I didn't quite catch which driver that was, but you can see, and then gets another bit of contact. Simon Wilkes coming back on, and just nothing he could do there, unfortunately, although the Lexus Aaron Martin Pilkington, I would say, caused that first incident by going a little bit too aggressively on the left-hand side. He was a bit of a passenger for the second one when he got nerfed into the wall, wasn't he, Toby, unfortunately?
Yes, I mean, I'm not a steward, so I'm not going to comment on who did what. But yeah, there was one of the Pulse cars off. Just need to identify who that was, who's running down the order. Do we still have everyone running in the race is the next question. Has anyone sustained such heavy damage from that opening lap impact that they've decided to call it a day, or do we still have all of our runners?
I cannot confirm nor deny at the moment, Dave. One thing I can confirm, though, is the fact that Milos Stamenkovic, as you can see, has dropped right the way down the order. I'm not sure what's happened to the Xanadu Simsport car. He is now down in 20th place behind Zlatko Pavlovich and Stein Paspon, who you can see on your screen at the moment. He's got Ollie Henley, who's also dropped down. In fact, to come back to what we said, Toby, I wonder if it was Henley who was caught up in that, because he qualified in 8th position and appropriately is in a McLaren. So I wonder if he was said McLaren who got caught up in that, and because he did go off into the gravel, that's put him down the order, I would expect.
Just a quick mention there on an absolutely terrific outside overtaking manoeuvre from Pavlovich as we were watching him there. So he's made that position up to 18th with a great move, and both the Porsches showing that they can run in these dry conditions, as we see Jonathan Simmel get a massive helping of opposite lock on the exit of Luffield there. The second, third, fourth have closed up a bit now. Absolutely,
and interestingly, it's showing Jonathan Seville in third as well on the time down the bottom corner, which is a bit odd. It's clearly just not updated. As you can see, Mantis Pavlaitis is sat in fourth place, which he clearly isn't. I was just hoping that wasn't the case, that Robbie Stapleford had disappeared and had some hardware trouble, but we're okay. But yeah, this battle for the podium positions is definitely hotting up, and all this means is that Robbie just continues to disappear out up front. He's 4.5 seconds adrift at the moment with 7 minutes or less than 7 minutes on
Seville's
the race
got a great
clock.
run here. Seville's got a great run as we can cut away. We actually see another Pulse car on the attack. Rasmus Christensen going around the outside of Kieran Vidago. Was there a little tap there, or was that just a bit of opposite lock? But either way, Vidago holds onto the position. And now watch out, because we've got another car coming around the outside, and that Golf livery doesn't quite make the move, but that got a bit tasty very quickly.
Absolutely, and that's one of those things, isn't it? When the guys drive as closely as they do here, you try and make a move, it doesn't come off, you just end up being susceptible to someone else almost immediately, and you nearly saw that at Pinchbeck, nearly making the move on Rasmus Christensen in that 27th Ferrari. And like you say, it's just a case of pick a Pole Simsport Ferrari, and it looks like they're trying to make the moves on someone, which is quite good fun for us.
Yeah, they're starting to separate into little groups now. So we've got a few trios, and then the absolute train from Adam Isailovic backwards. He's got about 5 or 6 cars in that train behind him. So
yeah, you can see it. So yeah, you've got Adam, then you've got Miles Dixon, you've got Dave Hedges, you've got Lem, and you've got Dean Riley and Marcus Hagel in that group as well. So a group of about 6 cars. Incredibly, which is something you wouldn't necessarily expect to see at this point. And they're like you said, Toby, they're splitting into gaggles, but they're still so close on track. It's one of those, if you can break away from one of these little gaggles of cars, if you can keep the pace, which it looks like most of these guys have, you've got the chance of getting back at the field, haven't you? It's just a case of trying to avoid all this action such early on in the race.
Well, in the dry, Silverstone is such a slipstreaming circuit that if you can get anywhere near the back of another car, you get a tow that really helps you accelerate up to the back of the group that you're chasing. If you do manage to break the tow, as we've seen a number of drivers do, then we do see these separate into these groups. But anyone who's battling in a pack, everyone in the pack just pulls each other along in the slipstream, which is why you see still at this stage so many drivers running so closely together.
Yeah, absolutely. We're hearing that, Simon Wilkes and Wagner Marquez and now Tomas Sivokas have all headed into the pits. So it looks like we have lost one. I think it's Aaron Martin Pilkington, unfortunately, that we've lost due to presumably too much damage because he took a very heavy punt into that wall on the first lap, as we saw a few moments ago. Cameron Fife, we just saw, who's under a bit of pressure from Mark Neutelings in the Bentley. Staying Passport now under a bit of pressure from the man it's Martin Dergala, I believe. I thought that was one of the duo of Wilkes and Silovic, but I'm guessing they've added Mr. Dergala into their ranks, who was actually the Simsport Racing AM Championship winner in season number 6. He actually finished 7th in the total championship, which is quite impressive. And you can see in the picture you've got the battle for 2nd and 3rd in there as well. So that's Jonathan Seville, who's putting under pressure or putting Mantis Moralitis under pressure. Regan Mitchell looks to have just gained a little bit of a gap at the moment. You've got a chance
from the others battling, I guess.
Well, exactly, yeah. And like I say, if you can just get away from a battling pack behind, you can really gain some time, can't you? It's just a case of, the unfortunate thing for Regan is the man in front of him, he's just that far ahead and very, very quick at the same time.
Yes, I'd be interested to see what these guys do now, because 2 cars working together is quicker than one on its own if you can tow each other along. So if they work together, they can get back onto the back of Regan Mitchell. But of course, if they just battle each other, they are going to drop time. So we'll see what Seville does, whether he sort of goes for the move or whether he's content to just get towed along back up onto the back of Regan Mitchell. From the body language of the car, I suspect absolutely not. He's going for the position, isn't he?
It looks like he's going to go and make the move, doesn't it? Speaking of making the move, we did just see Martin Dergala make the move on Staying Passport in the Jaguar. You see Dave Hedges going side by side with Marcus Hagel in the Simsport, one of the many Simsport McLarens. And I think it was Miles Dixon and Adam Asalovic going side by side through Merrickton Beckett as well. And they've got Leme on the scene as well. He's in that Aston Martin on the left-hand side of your picture, the man on his own, appropriately, alongside Miles Dixon. Looks for the move. He's going to try and protect them both going into Stowe. He's not. Adam Asalovic has got the Aston Martin around the outside. This isn't going to end well.
That's contact with Miles Dixon. Oh, how did they both survive that? That was... I'm sure one of those cars was sideways as we came down into the chicane there. Great driving from both of them to get out of that, because they could have kept their noses in and been on a one-way ticket to the barrier, but somehow managing to survive that.
Get me an onboard of Leme's car, because that was absolutely ridiculous. I don't know how he managed to keep that in a straight line. That was incredible what that man managed to do. I mean, there's no way to explain how he managed to keep that on the track, and somehow has managed to keep it in 10th place as well. Dave Hedges is on the scene along with Marcus Hagel. They've towed along for the ride, so it's now become a battle of 5 again. You've got Dombrowski's in the background with Pavlovic, Stamenkovic on their tail as well. It just seems, Toby, it's like an accordion effect, isn't it? They go into braking zone and there seems to be about 13 cars all trying to fight for the same piece of tarmac. It's incredible stuff at the start of this race.
Yes, and remarkably, they've exited all of that in the same order that they went into it. So it's still Asilovic leading this little gaggle from Dixon and Lem, but now the chasing pack are much closer. So we've got Hagel putting Lem under pressure. We've got Dave Hedges not too far back as well. So just trying to get onto the back of this pack, and it's that slipstream effect. You know, when you've got cars running this close, if you can't make the move, you can expect people to be coming up on the back of you. And I'd look a little bit further back. We've got another battle pack with Dabranzauskis and Pavlovic, Stavenkovic, all running not too far behind this. So if they keep battling, they will join this battle pack as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Francisco Lem, like I say, is a newbie to the team. Apologies, I didn't actually have his first name to hand. I've got it now, so I can confirm it's Francisco. I was going to say Fabio. I thought I'm not going to guess it, because if I get it wrong, I'm going to look even worse. But yeah, new to the team is certainly getting stuck into the thick of things in his first race for SSR. We're going to cut to a replay. I'm hoping, this is the onboard from Francisco's Aston Martin. This isn't, in fact,
this is Simon Wilkes.
I think that's Simon Wilkes. Oh no, it's Silovic ahead of him. Oh, just gets tagged. I thought he got a bit of oversteer, but it looks like he just got tagged from the back by Miles Dixon there. And I mean, fair play. He kept that pointing in the straight line, and that is some fantastic car control from the number 5 Aston Martin there. Brilliant stuff.
Is that a push to pass?
It looked a bit like it, didn't it?
Is that a bit of a suspect move by Miles there to get his rival just out of sorts and then make the move up the inside? I'm sure the stewards will have a look at that. But so Miles Dixon did gain the place and has held on to it, but is certainly not being left alone. Speaking of not being left alone, now I was talking about this earlier, that Jonathan Seville has called off the fight, hasn't he? Or either that or Pavlaitis has just got the hammer down. But they have caught Regan Mitchell again, so we have battle joined for second place once more.
Absolutely, and all of this is just it's not necessarily meaning the moment because they're not battling, but Robbie Stapleford is now 8.5 seconds adrift after 14 minutes. So he's gaining almost a half a second a lap at the moment, which is quite impressive to say the least. Miles Dixon up into 9th place now, sitting behind Adam Misalovic on the right hand side of your picture. I'm wondering how he's gotten up to 9th and 8th respectively. I wonder if one of the guys ahead has actually elected to go into the pits. I'm just trying to see if there's anyone who's dropped back. Oh, Rasmus Christensen has dropped back, I've just noticed. He's down into 16th place. He's still got the number 1 in orange next to his name, so he hasn't pitted. He must have just had a slightly moment. Yeah, but he's gone for a bit of grass cutting, a nice little excursion off to the side of the track. We didn't catch it, unfortunately, but he does seem to have dropped down a little bit. We're seeing probably areas just in the back of your picture. One of the many, many, many Pulse Simsport livery cars that have graced this Silverstone circuit this evening. And it seems, Toby, every time we go on to any sort of battle, it seems to be to do with one of those ones, doesn't it?
Well, there are a number of cars, but they also love battling, don't they? So no surprises. Now here's one that doesn't involve a Pulse car. We've got Stemenkovic behind Dan Brazauskis, and that is down into Vale and Club, just coming towards the end of the Grand Prix lap. Tried a move there, just maybe showing his nose up the inside. No real intent to send it up the inside, but just testing the waters, letting the driver in front know that he's there. Of course, he doesn't want to spend too long doing that because he does have a battle pack coming up behind him, but yeah, shaping up for a move, and I don't think with the body language of the car it's going to be too long before we see him make another attempt.
No, absolutely, and we can see that Milos has got the pace. He goes, just shows the nose again up the inside into the loop. And like you say, just trying to distract Dombrowski's a little bit going through that tight hairpin to get back onto the Wellington straight now for what is... Yeah, oh God, so go on.
I was going to say, what he's got to be careful of, it's all good and well sort of showing your nose like this, but he's compromising his own entry speed. It might have been better for him to just sit behind there and then try and get the run down the Wellington straight as he gets a big load of opposite lock heading into Luffield. It might actually give him a better run out because he's carrying a wider line, but not close enough to make a move into Cox.
Absolutely, and like you said, Toby, it's just bringing the likes of Dave Hedges and Dean Riley onto the scene of things as well. They're getting closer and closer by the second. Kieran Vidago sitting in 6th. He was a man who did relatively well in qualifying. He's in a Golf Aston Martin sandwich in from Rich Smith and Chris Pinchbeck. You can see the likes of Marquez, Crixtolitis. So that's going to be a pain in the ass to try and say every time. Martin Dogala, Simon Wilkes and Sivokas have all pitted so far. So they are kind of our control variable to see exactly where people are going to come out.
Yeah, Marquez was fairly well up the order, wasn't he? So it'd be very interesting to see when he catches the back of that pack that is currently the last of the non-stoppers, if you know what I mean.
Exactly, yeah. It'd be very interesting to see where they all come out. We've got a battle that has been seemingly going on for the past probably 4 or 5 laps now, as Martin Euteling's hounding the back of that Cameron 5 motorsport car driven by the appropriately named Cameron 5 and 13 machine, going round the outside at Stowe. That's going to shape him up to the inside at Vale if he can hold it, but Cam's just going to close off that. He's going to get the elbows out and say, no, Mr. Eutelings, that's not going to happen. I think I'll hold on to this 22nd position for the time being. Rob Jackson is only a couple of seconds up the road from them. Again, is it one of those, Tony, where you work together?
Actually. Yeah, I was just going to say, it's a great advert to say for this series. You can come in at any level. You don't necessarily have to be fighting at the top. There are battles all throughout the field. Wherever you are in this grid, there is going to be someone to race.
Absolutely, and speaking of someone to race with, Ollie Henley, who's on our camera at the moment, has got plenty of people to race with at the moment, including, I believe there's back markers there. I think that's Simon Wilkes in the Ferrari there just ahead, and I think that's Sivokas in the Bentley as well. So their back markers getting caught up in this, which is less than ideal for the likes of Henley. Exactly, yeah, and that's Christensen behind, and I think that's De Tolanera just behind them as well, I believe. In fact, that won't be. That'll be another back marker as well, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, I know that the blue flag rule in GT3 racing is just kind of, have to absolutely get out of the way, but I feel like they should be doing a little bit better of a job circumnavigating these cars and actually getting out of the way and leaving these guys who are battling to continue, seeing as they are a lap up on them at the moment. So a little bit dodgy, but I can't tell them.
But by the same token, I mean, just playing devil's advocate here, Simon Wilkes, we know is a quick driver. He's been into the pits and made his stop. So he would argue that he is very much in the race. He's just not racing directly wheel to wheel with the guys that he's trying to beat, because he's trying to make up the time after the pit stop.
Absolutely. You see Miles Dixon going around the outside of Adam Masalovic into Stowe. Brilliant move. And like I said before, he went to do what Mark Neutling's tried to do. There's a bit of contact there. I think that
he was tagged by Lem at the back. So Masalovic has been tagged by Lem as he's braked there. Just a little bit misjudged that braking point from the Aston.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a real shame there, because that was really shaping up for a good little battle. I was just about to say that that Miles Dixon managed to do what Mark Neutling's couldn't, which was hang it around the outside of Stowe and then get the inside into Vale. Unfortunately, he was given a helping hand by Francisco Lemme, who's actually dropped back into the clutches of Kaz Dombrovskis, Milos Stovenkovic, Dave Hedges, Dean Riley, Ollie Henley, Rasmus Christensen. Stovenkovic goes up the inside.
Stovenkovic, big lunge there that did not come off, sadly. The loop, not really an overtaking spot. There was a gap, but you've got to be fully committed in there, and I think he just left that a little too late to dive in, and sadly that has resulted in contact.
Absolutely, it's exactly what you said earlier, Toby. People are going to take different lines into different corners, and that is one of those where if you take that line, if you want to get the best possible line onto the Wellington Straight, you are going to take a really wide and late apex into that corner. It's exactly what Dombrovskis did, and yeah, Stovenkovic thought the move was on, it wasn't, and unfortunately he's come out second best in that one, which is exactly what happened when I was commentating on another series earlier in the year, and none other than Al Buncombe was the one who tried that move and it didn't pull off. So it happens to those who have been experienced in both elements of racing. So I'm sure Milos has dusted himself off, he's dropped a little bit down the field. I'm sure he'll be back very shortly as we turn our attention to the top end of the grid once more. It just seems to be going from I'm going to say it goes from one situation to another, doesn't it, Toby? Initially, first of all, it was the same as we've got now, where Seville is putting the twist, this turn the screw on Povilaitis, leaves Regan Mitchell to disrupt the road. Then it changes back, and they all kind of sit back in line astern, and now we're back to the battle pack again, where Jonathan Seville is trying to make that move done against Mantis Povilaitis. And body language of the car, I've said it a few times, he wants that move done, doesn't he?
Yes, and Povilaitis he's going to be sweating by the end of this one. He's been involved in a battle, I think, every single lap of this race. Whether he's attacking or defending, there's always been someone in close proximity to him. Now, they have dropped a little bit off the back of Regan Mitchell, and again, not so far back that you wouldn't expect them to move back onto the back of that car if they work together. It's a long race. We've still got over an hour left of this race, of course, and I think Seville, unless he's demonstrably quicker, sometimes it is quicker to just sit behind and get onto the back of your rival, because he knows there's a podium at stake here, and whilst he's chasing third, he's going to have his eyes on second. I would say first, but Robbie Stapleford is well clear at the top.
Yeah, absolutely, to the tune of 12.2 seconds ahead at the top of the timing chart at the moment, so he's only extending that gap as time goes on. Of course, pit stop phases can make or break races, so I'm sure he'll have his engineer in his ear saying to him, look, just keep your head down, do what you need to do, you've still got to focus on the pit stop phase, because you can always lose that time if you're not too careful. You see Ollie Henley now is the man who's putting the pressure on Kaz Dambrowski. He's already managed to hold off one McLaren 720S. Can he do the same? It's a different livery, but the same car. They go into Maggotts and Beckett's around the outside. That's a lovely move. He got a really good run out.
Committed move. That was fantastic.
A brilliant run out of Copse did Henley there, and he just had the move done almost before he went into the Maggotts anyway. That was a fantastic move and really good control from both of them to not have any contact there. Brilliant stuff.
Yeah, that was great, clean move. Well driven by Henley, and that's put him up into 12th place now. With Mr. Lem 3 seconds up the road, and we know that he's been involved in lots of battles already. He's about to have another one, I think. Give it a few laps. One driver that I'm keeping an eye on, who's been quietly making outstanding progress, is Chris Pinchbeck. He's up in 6th place and right on the back of Kieran Vidago. Now, I can't remember where Pinchy started, but it was well down the grid. So to see him up challenging for 5th place on merit after 24 minutes of racing is great. He's had a sort of a quiet run, but he's been picking off cars lap after lap.
Absolutely. And to think he was openly admitting earlier he didn't think he had the pace to contend at the top end of the grid, and he's certainly proving himself and everyone else wrong. And he's doing a fantastic job of it at the moment. He's putting the pressure on Kieran Vidago in the Ferrari ahead of him. These guys were teammates yesterday in the 10 hours at Silverstone, so it's slightly changed roles. It's not a case of you want to egg him on, you want to try and get past him as quick as you can. As one person's trying to get past us, Rasmus Christensen, Dean Riley going right to the inside down the Wellington Straight into Brooklands. Oh, a bit of contact, that was only going to happen. Dean Riley had to give a little bit more room there. I think he was very aggressive on the squeeze going down the straight, which he's well entitled to do. But Rasmus Christensen was going, I'm not having any of that. I'm coming through whether you like it or not, sunshine, and almost just barged his way through at the end there, didn't he?
Yeah, I mean, that's fine. I think Dean left just about enough space, but no harm, no foul.
Absolutely. That was a very fair move. A little bit of elbows out, got like a bit of door banging here and there, but nothing untoward. As you saw there, we've got Sebastian Titolinero, who is always a strong runner in these races in the very appropriate Schumi Get Well Soon livery, one that I've grown accustomed to seeing. It is quite a beautiful livery to look at, and that livery in front of him is fairly stunning as well. That Denso Supra style livery on the Jaguar of
Titolinero.
Yeah. Looking to go for a little bit of grass cutting through the complex there. Interesting. We see Simon Wilkes is back into the pits. I wonder if that's anything terminal, seeing as he's already made his first pit stop of the race. So I wonder if he's had some issues there. We can see Francisco Leme putting the pressure on to Adam Isalovic just at the moment, hoping to make a slightly cleaner move and not give him a bit of a love tap into Vale like he did a few laps ago. You can see the pace now that Marcus Hagel and Mars Dixon, Toby, have gotten out of this pack. They've already gained 7 seconds nearly on Adam Isalovic on that case. So they've really got the pace on these guys at the moment.
They have. I mean, Isalovic has been battling hard, and of course he did have that little love tap as well into the braking zone at Vale Chicane. So it's not all race pace, but yeah, it makes a big difference when you're not battling with someone, doesn't it?
Absolutely. He certainly did a good job, Mars Dixon. We did say he would come up through the field, and come up through the field he did, as has this man, as you mentioned before, Chris Pinchbeck. He's very, very close on the back of this Ferrari of Kieran Vidago, and he has been for a couple of laps now. And he's just wondering, I just wonder if these guys are in fact working together. They are very key parts of the SSR community, so I know that there's no doubt they'll be having a few words with each other. They've probably had a chat before the race going, yeah, we'll help each other out if needs be. And Rich Smith is slightly dropping off the back of them in that sister Golf Aston Martin. He's going to be hoping, though, he doesn't fall back into the clutches of that pole Simsport duo of Dixon and Hagel, who are sitting in 8th and 9th, with Adam Isalovic rounding out the top 10 for the time being, because as you can see, he's not got Francisco Leme too far behind, so he's going to be careful. So hopefully make sure he can maintain that pace. One man who's making a couple of moves as well is, funnily enough, the man who's just appeared on our screen, which is Martin Neutelings. He's all over the back of Milos Stamenkovic, which shows you the pace that this 666 Simsport Positive Perception livery car has. Mark is a big fan of the Bentley, and he's very, very happy to make that thing as wide as physically possible. So don't be surprised.
Oh, it doesn't take much, does it?
No, don't be surprised.
Now here is a move. So Lem is past Isalovic. So that is a move for the top 10 as the Aston takes the position from the Ferrari. He moves into the top 10. Although, given the history between these two, I doubt we've seen the last change of position this race, as Isalovic went very wide coming out of the final corner there. the final corner on the Grand Prix loop, but behind them, just about everyone else is 13th. As we head into 4 into 1, isn't going to go here, lads. Sort yourselves out. And that is very sensibly done. Dombrowski's hung out to dry, though. He is going to have cars swarming all over him, heading down into Village, and holds on to one position. He's lost out to Ollie Henley, but holds on from the cars behind. Are they on the same lap, actually?
Pavlovich in the Porsche is. The Bentley, I believe, is a lap down. I can't quite confirm who the Bentley is, but I do know that he is a lap down, because the highest Bentley at the moment is Martin Oetterling's, and he's definitely not in that field at the moment. As you see, Stamenkovic trying to go around the outside of Sebastian Tolinera through the loops. They've found that the outside line works quite well. The inside doesn't really work, but the outside one seems to work quite nicely.
That's not an overtaking spot, but obviously no one's told Stamenkovic that.
The thing I'm wondering if Tolinera had a bit of an issue coming into that selection of corners, because you can see Martin Oetterling has made the move in the Bentley as well, so he's making moves up the field. He started a little bit further down the grid. He's continuing his upward march through the grid, and like I say, I don't be too surprised if Mark runs that car very long into the race and makes it extremely difficult to pass on sort of the 30-minute mark with that to go, because he's a very, very difficult customer to get past. And I've
seen him do that strategy before, actually. I've seen him run long in races. I know it's a strategy he favours, so yeah, we'll keep an eye on that.
Absolutely. You see, Jonathan Seville still not able to crack the egg that is Mantis Povolitis in the no top speed racing 911 Porsche. He's still stuck behind him, and Riga Mitchell's not necessarily managed to break away at the moment, has he? He's dropped a few seconds further back from Robbie Stapleford, but he can't quite get a gap to the guys ahead. And Ollie Henley is one who is coming back through the field. Of course, he was 8th on the grid in qualifying. He had an unfortunate start to the race where he got tagged by Aaron Martin Pilkington, who was unfortunately retired. He's now pushing for the top 10 as well. As you can see, he can see the man in 10th, which is Francisco Lem at the moment, but he's got the treble one Ferrari of Adam Misalovic in the middle of him as well. And Adam would just be hoping that if he does try and make a move,
much longer.
Exactly, if he does make a move, he doesn't give him a bit of a love tap up the rear and go through that way like Lem did before. But
Henley goes slightly wider into the loop here and try and get the cut back onto the back straight. He's not close enough though. So Silovic, I thought he was going a bit deep into the loop, but he has got the speed on the exit that he needs. The Wellington Straight's quite a short one, so no opportunity down into Brooklands for Ollie Henley, but I think he's just sussing out where Isilovic is quick and where he's potentially vulnerable. As he follows him for a lap, he'll know where he can make his move.
Absolutely, yeah. Just a bit of a reconnaissance mission at the moment for Henley, as he just, like you say, sounds out the Ferrari ahead of him. He has got a nice cushion behind him of about 3 seconds back to Dean Riley, who's then got Rasmus Christensen within a second behind him as well. And you can see, Pavlovich has still got the Bentley in front of him. I can't quite confirm exactly who that is. It is a back marker, so certainly getting stuck into.
Yeah, the back marker's made a place back, hasn't he? He's repassed Pavlovich, which I'm sure won't go down well.
No, exactly. And the thing that gets me is the fact that, and I know you said it earlier, Toby, but you mentioned, I think it was Simon Wilkes talking about. He's well entitled, I think, although the blue flags are waving because obviously they're meant to. He is entitled because he's made that pit stop to fight for his position. However, surely his battle is with people. It could be with these guys, but he's battling with them in the wrong area. He needs to either let them through and hope they're quick enough, or he needs to try and get the move done on. I believe that's Dombrowski's ahead of him on track. As you can see, Pavlovich aggressively flashing lights, and he's done that since Maggots and Beckett's on this lap already. Just needs to try and get past Dombrowski's in that Mercedes and disappear off into the distance to try and actually get the speed back, because he's done his pit stop. He can run to the end now.
Yes, and of course, the longer you battle, whether you're battling with cars on the same lap as you or a lap down, whenever you battle, you're losing time. So if he's trying to make the time up, having made an early stop, his best bet is really not to battle. But they're all racing drivers. They will battle. That is their default position, isn't it? They want to go for the move.
And speaking of which, he's actually made the move on Dombrowski's. As you can see, he's managed to get past. So I'm very keen to see now how he manages to get, or how he gets on over the next couple of laps. Can he make a bit of the gap? As Dave Hedges tries to look to the inside of Slatko Pavlovich in the Simsport Racing car, the number 88 machine. His teammate Yannick Muller unable to attend this evening, so he's going to be fighting the Simsport Racing flag alone tonight, but doesn't manage to make the move on Pavlovich that time around. But
fantastic battle. But look
at
at
this.
Man. 5 cars and Cameron Fyfe right in the middle. He'll be absolutely loving this, won't he?
Absolutely, and he's got one of the most beautifully liveried cars I've ever seen behind him. I've always liked that Martini livery, especially when it came out on the Williams car 5 or 6 years ago, and on that Aston Martin again. It's one of those liveries, isn't it, Toby, that doesn't matter what car it's on, it looks the business. And
yes, like the Golf livery. It's one of those that would look good on any car you put it on. And I believe the car who was at the back of this group has just pulled into the pits. So
yes.
that group of 4 is now a group of 3, but we've got Dabranzowskis now. He's got...
no!
Pavlovich has got a run on him, and now it's 3 wide. So Hedges saw the opportunity. What a move from Dave Hedges. He does 2 in 1, does he? Oh, not quite. He can't quite get the move done before Stowe, but now he's in danger of losing the place again as Pavlovich is boxed in behind them. Be careful on the brakes, lads.
Oh!
And Hedges has done it. He's got 2 for 1. Fantastic. And round goes Dabranzowskis. That was unfortunate.
Oh, I was just about to say that was the perfect move. I mean, it was the perfect move from Dave Hedges. I can't say any fairer than that. He managed that perfectly, and how close they were going into Vale was unbelievable. The work for him. It was just a shame. There was a little tap from Pavlovich on the back of Dambrowski. Obviously, just spun him around there. But that is brilliant work from Dave. That is opportunistic to say the least.
That corner as well. That corner. It's one of those where the camber of the track falls away slightly, and it is so easy to spin the car. Just the slightest tap was unfortunately enough to send Dabranzowskis round. But yeah, had that happened on another corner when the car was perhaps a bit more planted, it would have been fairly innocuous. Just really unfortunate. But he was right in the middle of a move there. He was boxed in, had absolutely nowhere to go.
Absolutely. One man who's stuck in a bit of a move at the moment, an ongoing move, to say the least, is Cameron Fyfe. Saw him just going a little bit wide as he went into Village just a few corners ago, and luckily didn't have anything untoward happen. Didn't lose control of the car, fortunately. You can see Jonathan Seville still sat behind Mantis Povolitis. They have very much closed up on Regan Mitchell, who is now 20 seconds adrift of Robbie Stapleford. I've almost forgotten what the leader's car actually looks like at the moment. He's so far ahead. Ollie Henley has elected to go into the pits, so he's going to be one to keep an eye on. I'll be very keen to see where he comes out in relation to Wagner Marquez, of course, the first man who has committed and completed that mandatory pit stop. So we'll keep an eye on the timing tower to see where that 808 car returns on track. It's going to be quite a way ahead of him because, as you can see, although the P is still against his name, so he's still in pit lane, he has actually finished his stop because the mark on his name has gone green. So that tells you that Marquez is a little bit further back at the moment. So yeah, not so bad for Ollie Henley as he stands, and 19th as the time the tower suggests.
And well, he's tumbling down the order now. There's a big battle pack led by Stein Paspont, who's just gone past him. So Ollie Henley coming out, by the looks of things, in a whole heap of traffic from 19th down to 22nd. So that won't be ideal for him. Oh, I know he's still being passed in the pits. So
so looking at that then. Yeah, because Range Kelsey is 16 seconds adrift of those guys, that does mean he's got a fair bit of clear track ahead of him. As you can see, he's pretty much on his own. He's got the Lexus of Doviditis, and I think that's Weston in the Mercedes with him as well. Yeah, Luke Weston in the Tech Speed Motorsport Mercedes, that Dayglow livery, not one you're going to miss in very quickly.
Look at this, absolutely fantastic. Battling tooth and nail for 25th position. And that's what it's all about, isn't it? Just go out there and find someone on your pace and have a ding-dong race with them.
Absolutely, and that is exactly the kind of thing that SSR will breed and continue to push for people to do. You see Cameron Fyfe in 20th now, trying to make the move on Stein Paspont. Sebastian Tolneo's disappeared off of this one, so I don't know what's happened. Rob Jackson's pitted, so he's gone out of it as well. I wonder if there was a coming together between those two. It'd be interesting to see and find out what happened there, if it was anything untoward. But yeah, it does just speak volumes of the quality and the amount of ambition and the amount of commitment these guys have got to these series, because, like you said, Toby, they will battle for any position. Doesn't matter whether it's first, third, 10th, 50th, whatever it is, they'll still go tooth and nail, like you said, therefore. And if you want to join this, if you want to join the grid and you're watching this stream, you think I'd love to get out on track with some of these guys, and you feel like you've got the pace to throw the cat amongst the pigeons, and hop into the description on the video and you'll be able to see the link to the Discord server and you can get in, or you can join Toby and myself in the comments box if that is more to your liking, whatever you prefer. Let's see how we get on. As you can see, Toby, Jonathan Seville has pitted. So he's had enough of the back of that Porsche, so he's going to try and get a bit of clear air instead, as is Dean Riley at the moment as well.
Now, what baffles me slightly is that Seville appears to have had a much quicker stop than we saw from his teammate Ollie Henley. So either Henley had a bad stop, or Seville's been much quicker, because he's out well clear.
Absolutely. Interesting to see. We can actually confirm, we just heard it through from broadcaster Steve Proudly, the difference between the two pit stops is actually 4 seconds in favour of Ollie Henley. So it's 1 minute 5 to 1 minute 9 seconds for that of Jonathan Seville. So interestingly, not what we'd have expected, but I know that in ACC the timing tower does take a sector or two to unravel. So as you can see, Dean Riley's actually dropped back behind Ollie Henley, whereas Jonathan Seville was actually probably in the position you expect him to be. Unfortunately for him, though, he's come out behind the battling Jaguar and Aston Martin of Stayne Passport and Cameron 5. So he'll want to try and circumnavigate them as quickly as possible, and hopefully he doesn't get held up for too long. He's got a little bit of breathing room ahead of him before he starts to go onto the back of some of these battles. So
I think you're right.
I
possibly called it slightly too early as the timing tower was still adjusting itself there. But yes, he has come out towards the back of that group, which is more where I'd expect him to be.
Absolutely. And now the question comes, what does Mantis Povolitis do? The answer is, I thought he was about to say, he goes up the inside of Vale and tries to make the move very quickly, but he didn't manage to do it on this occasion, because this is a bit of a question point for him now, isn't it, Toby? Do you cover off the pit stop of the rival that you're fighting for a position on the podium for, or do you think you've got the pace to get past the man in front of you and run longer and try and get some space out the front as well? The one thing I can be pretty sure of, is that even with 50 minutes to go, Regan Mitchell is not going to pit until probably the last 10-15 minutes, because that is his trademark. He will run that car as long as physically possible, and he is fantastic at conserving tyres. So if I was in Povolitis' boots right now, knowing that, which he might not know, I would probably go and get some clean air and try and cover off the pit stop of Jonathan Seville. But
so that's interesting.
Who knows?
I've said it a couple of times already this broadcast. On a slipstreaming track like Silverstone, 2 cars working together is quicker than one working on its own. So if I was in his shoes, I'd be tempted to just sit behind Regan Mitchell. But what do I know? Into the pits he goes. I was going to say sit behind Regan Mitchell, work together and get some track position. But he has gone to cover off Jonathan Seville straight away.
Brilliant. It was almost like I knew that was going to happen. I had absolutely no idea, but it looked good nonetheless. And that promotes Chris Pinchbeck up into, I believe that's 4th place. I believe the time in town, not quite showing the right one. As Jonathan Seville makes the move on Cameron Fife, he needed to make that move quickly, and he has done. Interestingly, it looked like Cam just didn't really make that move too difficult for the Pole Simsport car, electing to go for the long game as the Aston Martin driver perhaps, and focusing his attention on the Jaguar ahead and almost treating it like a blue flag situation. So very level-headed from the number 13 car, which is good to see.
Yeah, and Povolitis now, we're just going to see where he comes out in relation to Seville, who's coming round Luffield, so he's not too far from the pit exit.
Absolutely, and Povolitis hasn't had the green light go yet, so he's not finished the pit stop. It does go now. It's going to be pretty close. There was arguably, I think there's 2 laps between the pit stop phase going through. We're going to see Jonathan Seville go into Cops now. He looks as though it's going to be very close. As you see, Povolitis is back onto the track. He's just about done the undercut. I mean, that is as close as you like. That's a grand total of about a second and a half that Jonathan Seville's managed to gain in that time, and he was fighting for positions as well. So that is brilliant work. And Mantis Povolitis went a little bit too long, didn't he?
Now, of course, it's over to Regan Mitchell. You said he is going to run to as long as he can, so we're not going to see him in the pits anytime soon. But he'll be monitoring that gap if indeed he can. He's not concentrating fully on the road in front of him. He'll be just keeping an eye on how close Seville and Povolitis are getting. I don't really know what the pit delta is. It's just over a minute, I think, based on the stops that we've had so far.
Yeah, exactly. I think you're looking at about 65, 70 seconds. Obviously, ACC is one of those, if you get the pit stop even slightly wrong, you can lose a bit of time and things like that. So it can vary, of course. You see Chris Pinchbeck has pitted. The quickest pit stop is 65 seconds, which is had confirmed. So you see the 2 Golf cars of Pinchbeck and Richard both electing to go into the pits now. pretty much, as we've seen, Cameron Fyfe has gone into the pits, as has Dave Hedges. So we're starting to see a few more drivers pit over the last couple of laps or so. And lots of them
think we're approaching the distance or something.
Well, exactly, yeah. It's almost like they're trying to split the race 50-50, isn't it? And going for the safe option. One man who's had the safe option the entire way through this race is the man on your camera at the moment who is lapping some cars towards the back end of the field, and that is Robbie Stapleford, our reigning champion from season number 6, looks to be, for all intents and purposes, getting his season number 7 exploits off to a winning start, which is something I'm sure he'll be very pleased to see. As you can then see, Kaz Dambrowskis and Miles Dixon also joining the list of cars that have elected to serve their mandatory pit stop almost at the exact halfway point of this race. Still plenty of way to go there, Toby, and still plenty of chance for everything to change.
Absolutely, and those who are staying out are now going to enjoy a bit of clean air, subject to traffic, of course. So going for the undercut, and it's the long game undercut. They might be staying out several more laps than the cars they're battling against. So at this stage of the race, it's always quite entertaining for us commentators, not knowing exactly where people are going to come out in the order, but we'll call the battles as we find them. This one we can see going on at the moment for 21st place between a car that has yet to pit versus a car that has already pitted. Dave Hedges steaming around the outside, and Dovidaitis didn't make that too difficult, did he? He
didn't. No, again, it smacks like one of those where he made it a little bit difficult to begin with, and then elected just to go, right, you know what, I'm losing a bit too much time here. I'm just going to let the guy pass. And like you say, Dave has already made his pit stop. He's on fresh tyres, so he's going to have the pace over Tadas anyway. So a very smart move again from the Beaver Grease Lexus, the number 32 machine. See Dean Riley very close and very wide, going through Stoweys all over the back of Rasmus Christensen. He's a man who, like we said, I've expected to make moves up the field. He's not quite managed to do that yet. It'll be interesting to see where he comes at. He'll at least go ahead of Pavlovich and Neutelings, I'd expect, who are yet to pit in 7th and 8th, and potentially Silovic and Lemmy as well. And Lemmy's have just pitted, and here Regan Mitchell's in the pit lane as well.
Pavlovich we have seen in the pits, and what's actually interesting is that something's happened there, because Jonathan Seville, who had got that undercut and got ahead of Pavlovich, has now dropped behind. So they've got a car between them as well, Mark Neutlings. But yeah, that gap now quite a significant gap between Pavlovich and Seville. So something has definitely happened there.
I think you mean Povolitis, don't you? Just to confirm. But you can see.
Apologies, I do.
I'm just making sure. You had me worried then. I was wondering if Pavlovich had pitted and it hadn't registered, and that would have been a big old shame.
You, Dave. Just testing
you. Keep me on my toes. I love to see it. You see, Chris.
First round of a new season, obviously still getting used to all the names. My apologies to
absolutely. Absolutely, it's all right. We'll put your teeth back in and we'll be all good to go. It's all good. Speaking of people who are trying to make an undercut, didn't work out on this occasion, was Chris Pinchbeck. He's sat in 10th position at the moment, just behind Kieran Vidago and Regan Mitchell. So Regan Mitchell has lost a lot of time in the pit stop phase there, because he's come out in a net 4th place behind Seville and Povolitis. So he's dropped a good sort of 3 or 4 seconds back, unfortunately. So I wonder if he's had some issues in the pit lane and had a slightly longer stop than expected. But we're starting to see things shape out, and really now it's a case of where do those, we know where Robbie Stapleton's going to come out. He's going to come out in the lead. But where do Marcus Hagel, Adam Misalovic, Zlatko Pavlovich and Mark Neutelings, where do they come out on the grid when they've made their pit stops? And this is what, like you said, Toby, this is where that uncertainty and element of intrigue comes into play, because although we roughly know where they were, they could come out anywhere, and they could pit now and they could come out in 16th, 17th, they could run as long as they could, and they can come out even further up or further down. So it's really interesting to see how things are going to shape out. As you see, Marcus Hagel and Anna Misalovic both pit on this lap to see where they should go.
I mean, in terms of the battle that we're seeing here, it's been interrupted by the pit stops, but they've resumed almost exactly at the same time delta from each other as when they went in. Pinchbeck is still staring at the back of Kieran Vidago's Ferrari. So they might have pitted on different laps, but it's exactly status quo as it was before the pit stops.
Yeah, absolutely. You see Pavlovich and Neutelings have pitted as well, so it's all going to be back to how it was.
That is a surprise. And so Robbie Stapleford actually staying out longer than anyone else.
I mean, he can pretty much run whatever strategy he wants at this point, can't he? I think he's got a little bit of
2 stops.
A little bit.
Oh, Vidago goes round.
what happened there? I didn't actually. I was looking at the timing chart. I didn't see him go off. I didn't think he lost it.
Just caught the end of it. I think he might have just gone into Copse a bit too hot and got on the exit curve. There was certainly no contact.
I was going to say it definitely looked unassisted because Pinchy. Oh, see another one.
Someone else is exactly the same. Rasmus Christensen. I'm almost tempted to say there's oil down on the track. It's
what on earth happened there?
And Miles Dixon is in the pits for the second time. So all of a sudden something's kicking off.
That is very strange. Hopefully, what I'd love to see, and I don't know if this is possible, and I'm sure broadcaster Steve Pratt is going to be cursing me cursing in my ear in a minute. I'd love to see them both side by side to see what happened, because they looked identical, those two mistakes. It was really, really weird that they managed to both come out like that. Very strange indeed. I mean, if you see one of them, it'd be nice to see, but they both, completely unassisted, but both of them with the car very close behind them. Very strange indeed.
I don't think ACC does oil on the track, but it's certainly a risk it cops in real life. If you get any kind of fluid down on the track there, it's very easy to rotate the car. And we've seen two drivers do it in quick succession. That's woken up the middle of the race, hasn't it? All of a sudden, the situation has changed with two drivers who were really making moves or involved in battles suddenly disappearing from their positions.
Absolutely. Very, very strange indeed. Not something I can say I've seen before. One thing I can say I've seen before, though, is Francisco Lem all over the back of Adam Misalovic for what seems to be the upkeep time in the first 45 or 50 minutes of this race. He's going into Village and he's still all over the back of him. He's not going to try and make a move through the loop, as he's not going to try and do anything silly there. He's just going to wait, bide his time. That Aston Martin is a quick car around here. It will be a little bit washy on turning. It's a bit understeery at the best of times, but I'm sure he'll have the pace. And in fairness to him, he does seem to have the pace over Adam in this race so far, because he has made the move on a couple of occasions. Just seemed to, I don't know if it's making mistakes or anything like that, but just seems to always end up behind the Serbian before the race is done. So still plenty of battling to go on for these two, I think.
Yes, and we'll keep an eye on Dave Hedges as well. He's got a bit of clear air behind them, and we've seen Dave pull one outstanding move already this race. He's going to be rubbing his hands at the chance to come up behind another battling duo, and looking to maybe do the same. Just a word on Regan Mitchell. Since coming out of the pits, he's seemed a little out of sorts. He's not really got back on the pace to chase down Seville and Povolitis. So it's currently sitting in fourth place with a bit of a gap developing. And actually, it's Chris Pinchbeck who's actually closing on him at a faster rate than he's closing on the cars in front of him.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a little bit strange, and something again a little bit strange. Wagner Marquez pitting. Then again, he pitted very, very early, so it's not unsurprising that he is elected to pit. We are going to see a replay. This is Kieran Vidago, the number 4 Simsport Racing car, going into Copse. You can see just catches the inside of the sausage
curb.
Yeah. Just a little bit too aggressive on the turning and just spins that Simsport Racing Apex car. Fortunately, there's a nice little escape process. He's not going to take too much pickup on his tyres that way, and comes back on. And where's he gone? He's gone down to 7th place, so he's not actually lost a huge amount of positions. He's lost time, of course, but he's because of the spread of the field in that top 10 now, he's managed to hold on to a decent amount of positions. He's still handling a pretty decent top 10 as it stands, but I'm sure he'll be a little bit frustrated. And we imagine, now that we've seen that one, that Rasmus Christensen probably did exactly the same thing.
In and amongst all of this, our leader, Robbie Stapleford, has come into the pits and emerged, as you would expect, still in the lead of the race with a gap of about 23, 24 seconds. So it's as he were up front. No pit stop dramas for Stapleford, which is great for him, but obviously everyone else has lost one potential opportunity to make some time up in the pits there. But Stapleford back out in the lead of the race and still looking serene.
Yeah, absolutely. You can see Arnes Morkis all over the back in that Beaver Grease AMG, the Treble 2 machine. So he's the teammate of Kaz Dambrowskis, at least in the AMG car. And this Beaver Grease team, quite a few of them represented in the race this evening. He's over the back of Cameron Fife in the CFM car, the Aston Martin. You can see that Miles Dixon, like you said, Toby, he's pitted. It looks like he may have retired because he's been in the pit lane for at least a lap now. So unfortunately, it looks like he's maybe had some damages and having to drop out. Luke Weston, interestingly, not something you tend to see too often, but I know exactly what's caused it. He's been caught speeding in the pit lane, it seems, and he's got a stop-go 30-second penalty for his troubles, and that is the worst thing, because it always seems to be, you know you've done it, but you just have to wait for it to get applied to you, and it's the most frustrating thing, knowing you're going to get the penalty and just waiting until it gets knocked against your name. It's unfortunate for him because he was doing well. He was sitting in the kind of the early 20s. He was in the battle with these guys at a point as well. And just unfortunately, that kind of penalty just puts you out of any contention, unfortunately, for that man. See another replay. This is Adam Masalovic looking like he's going to get passed by Francisco Lem, because I did see a moment ago they'd changed position as Lem just goes to the outside of Vale. He's going to go around the outside. Or Adam just catches the sausage curb. So again, almost a spit of what happened before. Just catches that inside sausage curb and unfortunately ends up losing the position to the Aston Martin. So yeah, Lem back up into 12th place once more.
Yeah, and they've been yo-yoing all race, having a great battle.
Absolutely.
But yes, I think Asilovic on that one, he was lucky not to go round actually. So yes, he's lost the position, but I think he'll still feel like he's come away from that a lucky boy.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the only thing, I've raced with him a couple of times before, and he's very, I say he will definitely admit that was his own wrongdoing. Like I say, just caught a bit too much apex on there. Those sausage curbs are lethal, especially around Silverstone, to name a few as well. As we've seen twice, we've seen 3 times now because Christensen's done it as well. And like you said, Toby, just very lucky he didn't manage to spin the car round. I can confirm every driver has now served their mandatory pit stop, which is why you've got a nice sea of green down the left-hand side. So it is flag to flag for the last 36.5 minutes of this race. Robbie Stapleford is almost unchallenged at the front of the grid with a 25-second gap back to Jonathan Seville, who's managed to jump both Regan Mitchell and Mantis Povolitis, who are currently sitting in 3rd and 4th at the moment. Chris Pinchbeck and Rich Smith in the Golf Aston Martin cars are in 5th and 6th with Kieran Vidago, Marcus Hagel, Dean Riley and Ollie Henley rounding out the top 10. Dean Riley starting to make good on the promise that I suggested earlier in the race, Toby, that he would actually make some positions up, and has luckily managed to get himself into the top 10, which I'm sure he'll be a little bit more happy with than he was after that qualifying display.
Yes, currently the middle McLaren in a group of 3, so he's got Hagel in front of him and Henley behind, and I should imagine, just based on what we've seen so far this race, we could probably expect, as we can see Cameron 5 going very wide there through Copse, and is possibly going to lose that position heading into Maggots and Beckett's nose. Morkis not brave enough to send that one around the outside. But sorry, just to finish what I was saying, based on the pace that we've seen so far this race, I would expect both Riley and Henley to get up onto the back of Marcus Hagel and challenge before the end of this race.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, it's just interesting. We've seen one move going into Maggots and Beckett's before, and Morkis didn't fancy it that time and elected to play it a little bit safe and let Cameron 5 live to breathe another day. One thing that does bring up a good point of, though, is the fact that Cameron 5, like you said, to me, went very wide through Copse there. It does bring up the appropriate conversation of drive-throughs and track limits, because I know that I'm 99.9% sure that Cameron 5 will have got a warning for track limits there, because he went very, very wide and wasn't exactly very slow coming out of Copse either. So it'll be interesting to see if we get any drive-through penalties because of track limits before this race is done, because such a fast track is Silverstone. It's not exactly the simplest one to stay inside of track limits the whole way around, is it?
It is a fast track. There aren't many places on the GP circuit where you can run wide that easily. Copse obviously being the biggest one, where it is easier to run wide. But a lot of the other places on the track, it's fairly well defined. You don't see drivers going out wide a lot. And I mean, on several of the corners, then if you do go wide, then there's grass and gravel waiting for you. As we see again, Cameron 5 wide, and this time Morkis does get it done up the inside and cuts back in front of Luffield. Great move whilst we're talking about that.
Yeah, very assertively done, wasn't it?
Yeah, but just to come back to it, I think other than Copse, there aren't that many places around this track where you'd expect to see drivers going wide. Yeah,
it'd be interesting to see whether they do actually have any issues with it there. I mean, you're kind of on that balancing act, aren't you? We've seen it happen in both respects. We've seen Cameron 5 go very wide through Copse, and then we've seen Kieran Vidago and Rasmus Christensen go too tight in Copse, and they've obviously ended up slightly worse off. And you can see, I think that's Robbie Stapleford in their mirrors coming through as well. So he's going to be lapping this duo anytime soon. But Cal, I'm sure, will be happy with his first race back, or first race in the GT3 Championship. Like I say, fighting very comfortably and fighting very well, in fact, just outside the top 20 at the moment. You see there, Robbie Stapleford, our current race leader, 28 laps and counting into this race. Laps another car. I think that is the car. I think that's Ranjith Kelsey in the Iron Lynx car. I believe it is. Yes, it is the number 51. the Simsport Racing works Ferrari driver, although he's got plenty of people to fight alongside at the moment. There's quite a few Ferraris on the grid this season, which is nice to see.
Yes, and it's actually, just since you've touched on the point, I do like seeing such a diverse grid where you've got lots of different manufacturers represented. It's always nice when not everyone goes for the same car.
Absolutely, and the good thing about that is obviously we're going to see races across the season where certain cars are going to be better at certain tracks. We know the McLaren is strong around Silverstone, but we know that things like the Mercedes and the Porsche are going to be faster around the likes of Donington. So it's going to be really interesting to see how it reflects across the season. I don't think, despite the fact he's putting on a fairly dominant display so far this evening, I don't think it's going to go all of Robbie Stapleford's way this season, and I'd be very intrigued to see how Mr. Stamenkovic, who's currently down in 17th place, he's been in the wars a little bit so far this evening, unfortunately. I'd be interested to see how he gets on as Cameron 5 going very, very sideways through Brooklands and into Luffield there. Ranch Kelsey manages to make the move on the number 13 car, and it just seems a little bit, Toby, that Cam's just seems he's just on the ragged edge a little bit at the moment, isn't he? He needs to rein it back in a little bit, maybe.
Yeah, he would have scored some good drifting points there for that move. I think was Cameron one of the earlier drivers to pit. His tyres possibly slightly older than some of the guys he's battling with.
I think he pitted around about half distance, so he should be fairly fresh on tyres. So it's interesting. I'm not sure what would be causing this. I have the pleasure.
Confidence, maybe.
Well, maybe, yeah, or a little bit the complete opposite way, because he's just had a couple of people come past him. But I'm sure he'll get his head back into it. I'm sure he'll start to work his way back towards those guys in a minute. Adam Misalovic still unable to get past Francisco Lemme, and Dave Hedges has joined on the back of this train as well. So it's almost a triplet. I wouldn't say it's a triplet just yet. There's still a bit of a gap between them. In fact, edging ever closer down the Wellington Straight, and just proving me wrong. They have got quite a large gap behind them to Zlatko Pavlovic, which is quite good for them. So anything that does happen, they've still got a nice little gap behind them to work towards, haven't they?
Yes, and this battle's been brewing, hasn't it? It was a few laps ago that we mentioned Dave Hedges closing in. Well, it's taken him a few laps to get here, but he is now on the back of this battle and the quickest of the three in clean air. So we'll see whether he can make his way past. But of course, catching is one thing. Passing, as we've seen, has all sorts of risks associated with it. And particularly with these two who have passed each other, Lem and Isailovic, so many times. You're now throwing a third driver into the mix who is a little bit different in terms of driving style. Possibly might make a few moves that they're not expecting. So watch out, this could get fiery.
Absolutely. Well, we've seen Dave Hedges has mastered the opportunistic move already once this evening, going down the hanging straight at the moment, and getting the move done past two cars. And one of them was, in fact, I think it was Adam Misalovic. Oh no, it wasn't. Sorry, it was Dombrowskis and Pavlovic, I think, in the end that he got past. But he'll be looking to try and maybe do something similar again. John Mulholland in the YouTube chat sending his support for Dave Hedges, and very appropriately says Toby that this Stapleford's a bit good, isn't he? I think that's the understatement of the season so far, if ever we say one, even though we're only 2 hours into the new season.
He's certainly made the start that he would have wanted to his title defence, yes. There's nothing more to say on it, really. He's been exemplary up front. As you said, that lots of different styles of track to come, some of which may suit different drivers and different cars, so we'll see whether he maintains this level of dominance as the season goes on. But yeah, certainly an exemplary performance in round one so far.
Absolutely. One person we have lost, unfortunately, just seen in the YouTube chat, is Cameron Fife. Unfortunately, his game has crashed. You can see him here on a replay. He's going onto the Hamilton Straight. I wonder what's going to happen. I'm a little bit worried now if it's crashed, because I'm guessing he's going to go straight on. Presumably not stop at all. He's straight on into the wall. Oh, such a shame. Yeah, game's crashed, so he is officially retired from this race. Such a shame. He's doing really well, getting in some fantastic battles, and one we've seen on the cameras a lot this evening. So you'll want to watch this back so you can catch a lot of the beautifully liveried CFM car on track. But unfortunately, not able to end this race the way he would have wanted to, which is a real shame.
No, he will have enjoyed his battles, though. He's been in some really good battles this evening.
Absolutely, and still 5 races to go, and still plenty of chance to get that Aston Martin up in some good points-paying positions. I have no doubt at all. Speaking of points-paying position, just outside the top 10, which is what these guys were fighting for a little bit earlier in the race. They've dropped back a little bit at the moment, probably due to the fact they've battled on pretty much every one of the 30 or so laps we've had so far at the moment. is Adam Misalovic and Francisco Lemme. And like I say, we've still got Dave Hedges behind him. I'm just hearing as well that Mantis Povolitis is actually closing the gap to Jonathan Seville. You can see he's just within a second now.
Yeah,
so
now that's crucial. He's got within the slipstream range. So this battle, which we saw a lot in the first half of the race, was interrupted somewhat by the pit stops when Seville got that undercut or overcut. But yes, now the gap is starting to close again. No Regan Mitchell with them this time, so it is just the two of them who will battle it out for second and third as things stand. But what makes this really interesting is that there's also a back marker in front of them. So this will present an opportunity to Povolitis to maybe make the most of that.
Absolutely, that's one of the Aston Martins. I think that's Francisco's teammate. I didn't quite catch the number or the name on it, because now see Francisco Lemme on the track at the moment. You can see him again, still ahead of Adam Misalovic for now, with Dave Hedges just skulking in the background, just waiting to see what scraps he can pick up. And he's got the ringside seat for this one, hasn't he? Because these guys have had a couple of coming togethers, but he's going to be sitting there and just kind of licking his lips, going, right, when's something going to happen here then? When am I going to get the chance to nick a couple of positions and get a bit further on the grid?
Francisco Lemme is going defensive on the way down the Wellington Straight, and whilst he's not actively defending his position, what that means is that he is looking in his mirrors, and Adam Misalovic will know that. He'll know that he's in the driver's head now because he can see him defending. So, you know, every little jink that Misalovic makes now, he knows he's going to be watched. So, golden opportunity to try and put Francisco Lemme off here, but the only thing he's got to be careful of course, is that he's also got a car moving around in his mirrors in the form of Dave Hedges.
Absolutely, and they've also got some back markers to pay a bit of careful attention to ahead of them as well.
Dave's got a run here. I think he's possibly not quite close enough to do it into Stowe, but if he can carry the speed through Stowe, Dave is close enough. No, he's gone wide into Stowe, so that move evaporates sadly. But something's brewing. It's not going to stay like this for long.
No, exactly. And what I'm hoping is they'll all stay on the track, but I'm worried that something like that may not happen. But we'll wait and see. It's all part of the beauty of this race. We've got 25 minutes to go. Although it may look potentially like it's wrapped up for the first place position, there's still action all the way up and down this field. And as we've mentioned a number of times already, it just shows the commitment of the guys on track here this evening, that they're fighting for any which position they can get. Because
Misalovic has got the run here, but he doesn't throw it up the inside. I don't think he quite had enough overspeed. So just again though, showing his nose. Just hassling the back of that car in front of him.
It's a very interesting dynamic because they've got Sebastian Tolero just ahead of them. They're hopefully going to all three of them are going to try and get past him going into the corner. But Adam Misalovic is looking to the inside into Brooklands. It's the best chance to make a move. He's not managed to make it. Lemme's gone up the inside to Tolinero. Has just gone, right, I'm getting out of the way of this, and just shapes to the outside and jumps straight out of the way. But Adam was looking for the move there. And interestingly, the move from Francisco to cover it was to just send it down the inside of the back marker, which is a little bit unnerving, but it worked.
Handled that very well, actually, Francisco Lemme. So great defensive driving, but he's got to try and keep it up for another 24 and a half minutes.
Absolutely. They say offense is the best form of defense, isn't it? And he certainly did that there. Just went straight at the inside of Sebastian Tolero and goes, right, I'm going to stick a car in between you now, and I'll move on and carry on to the next one. But he's defending Toby on every single straight, isn't he? You can see he did it on the main straight. He'll do it on the hangar straight now. He does it on the Wellington straight. He just goes to the inside really early.
Great exit from Chapel for Dave Hedges there. So we saw this last lap as well. Hedges got a good run, but then just drifted wide in Stowe. What can he do this lap? Can he keep it tighter? And again, he's gone for a slightly wider line actually. So that's not running wide. That is deliberately taking a wider.
You can see there, very close going into Vale. We can hear there's team orders from the Golf Aston Martin team. Pinchy has let Rich Smith through, which is an interesting one. I mean, I doubt it is actually team orders, but you never know with these sorts of things. You can see the Lexus of Doviditis is just ahead of this train at the moment, and this is going to add another element of spice to it. I've had confirmation that Pinchbeck did actually get out of the way, so it clearly would have been some team orders. So thanks for the clarity on that from our broadcast director. But Adam's just dropped a little bit back off the back of Francisco Lemme at the moment. It's just opening the door for Dave just to have a little bit of a peek, isn't he, Toby? It's just everything's flowing quite nicely.
Yeah, but for the first time we've actually saw Adam go defensive there, which is why he lost a little bit of time. So he's now focused a bit more on keeping Hedges behind him. It is a fascinating battle. It's by far the closest on the track as well, which is why we are focusing on it. But yeah, the positions might not have changed for 2 or 3 laps, but this is a fascinating game of high-speed chess. There's a lot of racing going on here, even though the positions aren't changing.
Absolutely, it's fantastic to see. And it's equally impressive that they're managing to do this at the speeds they are with people around them. And they're still running pretty decent times. They're slightly over the 2-minute mark at the moment. That's not exactly slow. That's still really good pace for these guys, just outside the top 10. And you can see there, Tadeusz Dovidaitis just gets out the way of these guys. Very sensible indeed, just runs a little bit wide at Copse to let those guys through. And yeah, interesting to see. Well, I mean, this battle is far from over, as is the battle for second place, because you can see the time at the top of the timing tower is now down to less than half a second. So Mantis Paulitis is continuing to close that gap. You can see him in your picture-in-picture running through the loop at the moment. Adam Misalovic very close in the slipstream, going down into Stowe, goes to the inside. Leme just goes a little bit defensive, goes to the outside. He's going to try and cover the line. It's a Vale, a little bit of touch in there. That was very, very close indeed as they go under the brakes. Dave Hedges is there. Is he looking at the inside into Vale? It looks like he is. He's just had to dive back out of it. That was a little bit scary for both of them there, and Lems managed to get himself off the hook. He went wide into Stowe there and just looked a little bit susceptible, didn't he, Toby, going into Vale just for a moment?
Possibly, but I'm very impressed with Lem's defensive driving. I think he's positioning his car absolutely perfectly. So he's made that car as wide as possible. I've no doubt that the cars behind him are slightly quicker, but just cannot find a way past.
Absolutely, yeah, that's very true indeed. You see Mantis Paulitis going very wide, as was Jonathan Seville. This is very close going to Maggotts and Beckett's all over the back of him. We said that Porsche is quick in a straight line, but whatever Mantis is doing, he's certainly working for him this evening. He's clearly got that car hooked up and doing a fantastic job of keeping what goes to his chance of second at play at the moment. You see in your picture-in-picture, you've got the battle ongoing for 12th place between Lem, Stanovic and Hedges. As we now turn our attention to the battle for third, you see them weaving across the Hanger Straight, going down towards Stowe. You know that's when they're in their heads, which is fantastic to see.
This is the stage of the race there, because they're no longer going to be thinking about working together. There's no hope of catching Robbie Stapleford. They both know that. This is now a fight to the end for position, so there will be no more working together here. It's every man for himself as we enter the last 20 minutes, and we're now starting to see Paulitis turning the crank on Jonathan Seville and just trying to put pressure on, trying to force him into mistake, trying to open the door to make a move up the inside on one of these high-speed Silverstone corners.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's Regan Mitchell just on in the background there. 3 seconds adrift at the moment, but I'm sure that will close up soon if they continue to battle like they are. You can see still in your picture on the Hanging Straight, it's still Lem that goes Isalovic, that goes Hedges. It's still no change for them at the moment, but they're still so close. You can see going through Stowe, that is Isalovic looking to make the move again. He's managed to just about get alongside. No, he hasn't. He's dropped in behind. You can see it's impossible to keep abreast of this. You can see
we've got a big dive to the outside. Can he send it around the outside? No, he ran out of grip. Very quickly decided to back out of that one, but now he's got the wider line again. If he can cut back and get a better run out of Luffield than Jonathan Seville, it does give him a chance into Copse, which he has got. He's got the run. Now, where does Jonathan position his car? He's gone right over to the right-hand side of the course, forcing his rival around the long way around. And look at the gap behind to Regan Mitchell, absolutely disappearing as they battle. This is bringing Regan Mitchell back into play for a possible podium spot here.
That was impressive from Jonathan Seville. Very aggressive going into Copse, wasn't it? Just shut the door and went, no thank you, sunshine, you're not coming through here. But it almost looked like the highest of IQ moves from Mantis Paulitis. We thought he was going around the outside into Brooklands, and he just seemed to shape a completely different line to get the exit out onto the main straight, and nearly got the chance to do it. Didn't manage to stay close enough. You can see these guys now going through. As Dave Hedges goes wide, he dips a couple of wheels onto the gravel. That's going to set him back. But Adam Isalovic is all over the back of this Aston Martin now. Is he going to shape to the inside?
Gone defensive. So this is Isalovic's chance. If he can throw it up the inside, but he can't quite get alongside.
Get it done.
That was an opportunity, but only a half chance. Not really a clear-cut effort. So sensibly backing out of it, but. Yeah, that brings Dave Hedges back into play again, despite that slight off on the exit of Luffield. So status quo again. but still great racing going on. And we've got two battles on screen at the moment, quite rightly so. They're both absolutely fascinating. One, of course, for a podium spot, high stakes, but the stakes may be lower, but the racing is just as intense at this battle for 12th.
Oh, absolutely. It's fantastic to see these guys giving every inch of their being to try and get these moves done. It's fantastic to see. Dave Hedges just drifted off a little bit slightly. Adam Misano still putting the pressure on Francisco Lems. He's still looking to make that move, and I'm pretty convinced he's almost pushing him through club and onto the Hamilton straight. Very, very close, gone very wide. That's going to be a contentious item for track. It's going to be very careful. If he continues to do that, we can see onto the main straight once more to start-finish straight. Povolitis still behind Jonathan Seville in your picture-in-picture. He's still not managed to make the move. And it's one of those, if you're going to make that move, Toby, into Cops, you need to be alongside before the braking zone, really, don't you? Otherwise, you're just not going to make that move happen, and you're just going to get the door closed on you.
Well, that's exactly what we saw in the Formula One race, wasn't it? That very contentious issue into Cops. You have to be alongside, and clearly alongside, to make that move stick.
Yeah, absolutely. One man who's looking to be alongside going into Brooklands is Adam Misalovic, all over the back of Lemme, going to the Wellington straight. Is he looking into the move into Brooklands? He is. Again, just shows the inside, but can't get alongside. And it's very difficult as Lem goes wide. There's a little bit of contact between them as they go to left. Oh, that is.
Misalovic forces the mistake. Lem, having defended stoically for so long, just got a little bit wide on the exit of Brooklands, and that was all the invitation Misalovic needed. He absolutely pounced on that. Great.
He did not need inviting twice to do that move, did he? That was fantastic stuff from Misalovic, and unfortunate for Lem just to lose that on a mistake. He would have been, I'm sure he wouldn't have been as disappointed if it had been on a move, but you can see going on the Hamilton straight, Povolitis looks to the inside again. Regan Mitchell, but in less than 2 seconds behind this pair now. They haven't necessarily been battling on the last couple of laps, they kind of just sat line astern, but that's giving Regan Mitchell the chance to get back into the thick of things, and Rich Smith is only a few seconds back as well, so this could get very, very juicy if we're not too careful. Adam now under pressure in the picture-in-picture from Lemme this time. Lemme now under pressure from Dave Hedges. We'll see if he can make the move as they go through Stowe and into Vale for the 38th time, as Povolitis going down the Wellington straight, going into Brooklands for the 38th time. He's looking to make the move on Jonathansville. This is ridiculous. We've got two battles that are around 30-40 seconds apart, but being fought, like you said, Toby, with exactly the same amount of commitment by every driver involved. It's fantastic stuff.
Yeah, one battle that is brewing, actually. It's not a battle yet, but Dean Riley has been closing steadily on Kieran Vidago. Now that Riley's got clear air, he's been making the most of it, and he is closing on 7th place. So possibly one more place to gain for Dean. Not saying that Kieran's going to be easy to pass. Of course, we've seen him battling hard with Chris Pinchbeck earlier in the race. But certainly Dean running on faster pace as things stand.
Absolutely. As you can see, there are a couple of people getting involved in this one now. I think that is Luke Weston, and I think that's Ollie Henley, interestingly, who's in that battle as well. So I don't know how he's ended up in that, because he was a few places ahead. In fact, that's going to be on track, this fight with Henley. I don't know how he's managed to...
ahead of Lemon Hedges.
I think he's dropped back because Isalovic has gone up into 11th place now, so I imagine Henley's actually dropped back down the grid. So I don't know what's happened. He looks like his car's a bit battered and bruised, so I don't know if he's got issues. He's very, very slow in a straight line, giving Dave Hedges a chance going towards Cops. Can he get it alongside? He can. He's got the inside line, and that's exactly...
a car, isn't it, for Ollie Henley?
I mean, that's exactly the kind of move you wanted, but I don't think that would have been the move you'd have made had that car been in fully working order. Francisco Lemmy's going to try and make the move this time as well as he goes to Magnus and Beckett's. He's alongside him. Very, very confident from that Aston Martin. Luke Weston's thinking, right, let me get out of this one. Let me avoid this like the plague, and we'll see if we can get out of the way of these guys and let them carry on. But Lem with a very confident bit of driving there, going into Magnus and Beckett's, managed to make the move. And yeah, Ollie Henley driving in a very battered and bruised McLaren, which is a shame because he was doing a fantastic job in the top 10, I believe he was, and he's just dropped out as a result of whatever contact came his way a few laps ago.
A couple of scrapes on the side of that car, on the front of the car, so yeah, not surprising, but one battle might have broken up. This one certainly hasn't. Povolitis and Seville still stepping out from each other, one to defend, one to try and distract. And the side of Povolitis' car looks like it's got a few scrapes on it as well, actually. We've certainly not seen him involved in any contact, but it's by no means a pristine Porsche anymore, is it? Absolutely indeed. And they've got, I think that's Crixtolitis in the Bentley ahead of him in the 999. I think he's actually meant to,
He's a lap down, so he's a little bit far off Raj Kelsey, so he shouldn't be getting in the way of these guys too much. Obviously, Regan Mitchell just over a second behind now, so he's very much becoming a part of this duo, making it a trio as it stands. With 13 minutes left to go, still all to play for this podium. And whilst again we can say, as Pavlaitis goes off there onto the grass, he's somehow managed. I was going to say, he's gotten away with it. He managed to not lose the back end of the car. We talked about the Porsche can be a little bit tail happy when you get it out of that operating window you want it to be in, but he's managed to hold on to it quite nicely. But it's just going to give Mitchell and it's going to give Jonathan Phil those little bits of confidence. Just think, right, he's a little bit on the ragged edge at the moment. There's a chance here that we can either pull away, or in Regan's case, he can maybe make a move if there's a mistake coming from the Porsche driver before the end of this one.
On board with Regan Mitchell, so you can see that's the gap. It's a psychological gap at the moment when you can see that you're close to the guys in front, but you just can't get any closer. You start wondering whether you've reached your peak. I'm sure Regan, though, is an experienced driver, that won't affect him too much. Although a back marker could affect him here if he gets in the way. Mitchell about a second behind, which he has been for the last couple of laps. So he's there in the mirrors, but not close enough yet to start joining the fun.
Yeah, absolutely. You can see Zlatko Pavlovich has gone. Ollie Henley's gone into the pits, so presumably that damages race over for him. Unfortunately, Lemme's been overtaken by Hedges, so he's dropped down to 13th now. Regan Mitchell, that's at the inside of Quickstolitis. That's not going to be an interesting move at all, unfortunately. Apologies for getting very, very excited then for a brief second. A battle that is continuing to go on track, though, is we've got another trio formed in Stein Paspon, Arnes Morkis and Sebastian Tolinera, these three on track at the moment. And they're going to be fighting for 18th place now, as after Ollie Henley's dropped into the pits. And like I say, it looks like he's retired, unfortunately, which is a real shame because he was having a fantastic race up until he got caught up in whatever contact he did. Because, like we said, Toby, that was a very, very wounded McLaren, wasn't it?
Yeah, we've seen a couple of Pulse cars in. It's a drive-through penalty just to add insult to injury for Ollie Henley. So whatever issue he had has just been compounded.
There you go. No, yeah, he's just retired again. So unfortunately, I think that was the straw that broke the camel's back, unfortunately. But Pavlaitis all over the back of Seville going in, down a hanger straight. I thought he was close enough to just shake to the inside and make a move there, but he didn't. Again, just waits behind. That Porsche was not the quickest in the straight. I talked about that, but he's going to go to the inside, just looks up the inside of Seville into Vale again, just giving him the eyes. I don't think he needs reminding, but just reminding Seville that he is in fact still very, very close behind him. And
it's compromising his line so much, though. And now Regan Mitchell, again, he's still about a second behind, so he's not catching. But the more he sees this in front of him, it's going to spur him on, because Pavlaitis isn't committing to a move. And I think, whilst he's obviously showing pace, it's also almost showing weakness. You know, when you're not going for a move. And when Mitchell comes up behind him, if he gets close enough, that will be very much in his mind that if he throws one up the inside, he wouldn't expect Pavlaitis to defend.
Yeah, absolutely. Looking to a battle that you actually called a few laps ago, Toby, is Dean Riley is all over the bat now with Kieran. In fact, I think he was closing up on Marcus Hagel before, but he seems to have dispatched him. Again, I wonder if there was a coming together between Hagel and Henley, because they've both dropped back, and this gives Riley the chance to make the move on Kieran Vidago. Some of the Aston Martins, the back markers getting out of the way at the moment, fortunately for those two. And Dean, like I say, he's worked his way up, he's taken his time. He didn't manage to make too many moves early on in the race, but he's managed to get a very commendable top 8 finish as it stands. But he'll be looking to improve it over the final 9 minutes. And we'll see if he can make that move and get that move done. We've seen Kieran Vidago go for a little bit of excursion through Cots before. He's going to be hoping to not do that again. And you can still see. Oh, as you see, is that Seville going wide there?
That was Seville off the track, yes. So Seville has dropped now behind Regan Mitchell as well. So it was last lap, I think, we saw Pavlaitis, or a couple of laps ago, go wide on the exit of Chapel. This time it was Seville through the middle of Maggots and Beckett's, which is where you really don't want to have your car misbehaving on you, taking to the grass and losing all of that momentum down the hanger straight as well. So, yeah, one mistake and he's lost 2 places.
Oh, that is such a shame. It just looked like a bit of snap oversteer, didn't it? He just had to try and correct the car, and obviously went onto the grass. And such a shame for Jonathan. He was pretty much I wouldn't say he was guaranteed a podium, but he was definitely had a really, really good chance of getting one. Obviously, sitting in second.
just didn't look like he was going to pass him anytime soon.
Well, exactly. Yeah, it was a lot of kind of half-dedicated moves from the Porsche, wasn't it? He wasn't really trying to make the move. It was almost like he was trying to scare Seville into a mistake, and
it worked.
I mean, it clearly worked. It was just totting up the pressure over time, and now Rich Smith's got a chance of getting himself a nice little 4th place, which he'll be happy with because he's now all over the back of Seville after that incident. So, in the matter of a few laps, it wasn't exactly how he expected it to change, Toby, but the top 4 has changed quite dramatically, hasn't it?
Just wondering if someone from Pulse has walked under a ladder or something whilst this race has been going on, because it's just unravelled for them in the last few minutes, hasn't it?
Yeah, someone's dropped a mirror somewhere in Pulse Simsport HQ and it's all just gone completely pear-shaped.
Seville again ragged out of Brooklands into Luffield, so I wonder if he's sustained any damage to that car, or whether he's just got a bit flustered having gone off. But yeah, Rich Smith now looks the quicker of these two drivers.
Yeah, very, very strange indeed. It's all kind of, like I say, it's all unravelled for these guys. They were in second, they were with a few cars in the top 10. They've still got 3 cars in the top 10, of course. We can't take anything away from that in terms of the team championship, but not in the positions they would have hoped, as Rich Smith covers a little bit of grass on the way into Maggots and Beckett's. It's not really the entry you'd want, but it might help the car slide a little bit more if he's got no grip on the right-hand side tyres. But yeah, very interesting indeed. You see Dean Riley still sitting on the back of Kieran Vidago. These guys are a few seconds behind the trio we were watching a moment ago, and Dean again still trying to make the move. It's interesting, Toby. We see, like you say, it's a big slip.
Dean's in trouble there. I don't know what happened, but he's suddenly dropped a whole heap of time through the middle of Maggots and Beckett's. Did he go wide?
He just seemed to miss the apex into the final corner of that little complex, didn't he? It was very strange. See, Regan Mitchell's now closing up to the back of Mantis Povolitis, so this is potentially a chance for it to go back to how it was before. Regan's thinking to himself, right, well, I had this position before. I would quite like it back, thank you very much. And that's Stain Passavant ahead of them, Sebastian Tolinera behind in terms of back markers. So it's making this a little bit spicier again with 6 minutes just left to go. Robbie Stapleford, of course, he's been anonymous in this race, unfortunately for us, but fortunately for him, he's had a uneventful race to say the least, and I'm not entirely sure what I'm going to ask him when it comes to the interviews in a short while. Probably ask him what it was like, if did he manage to get any schoolwork done or something whilst he was driving. I've no idea. Hasn't had much to do by the looks of it. He is far and away in first place. Of course, Povolitis is still in first, but Richard going down the inside of Jonathan Seville. He's trying to make the most of the fact that the Pole Simsport driver seems a little bit out of sorts at the moment. In the inside of Brooklands, outside it turns into Luffield. Can he get the switch back? He can't. Is he going to have the pace coming out of the corner to go through towards Copse? It doesn't look like it, so he's going to have to try the move somewhere else, Toby, at the moment, I think.
But the move looks like it's coming, and that was a committed move. That's what I was kind of waiting for Povolitis to try and do in that battle for second, was put one up the inside and force Seville to compromise his line. Rich Smith has done that once, and it looked very much like he's got the opportunity to do it again. That Ferrari is not running as quickly as it should be. There's something not quite right with that car, whether it's tyres or whether it's damage or whether it's confidence on the part of the driver. It looks as though Rich Smith, it's a matter of when and not if.
Absolutely right. It's a very interesting position because, like you say, it doesn't look, for all intents and purposes, that Ferrari is particularly wounded, apart from, like I say, maybe the confidence. And he pitted around the same time as everyone else did, so he's going to be on a fresh-ish set of tyres as Rich Smith goes to the outside of Vale, looks for the switchback. He's going to get a nice run out of club up the Hamilton straight, and he's going to have the back markers to contend with as well. As you can see, look at the closing speed he gets there. He goes wide to the outside.
Oh, how brave do you want to be?
He's going to go for it. He keeps it in. He's not going to do it, but he's going to have another. Again, he's compromised the line again just to get the run into Village. Is he going to go for it this time? He's not close enough, but I wonder, Toby, if he's going to compromise the line going in through the loop and just try and go for another move into Brooklands like he did in the lap before.
Well, that's where he looked most confident, didn't he? Of all the sort of corners that we've had on the lap since we've been following him from a lap now, it was Brooklands where he really made that bold statement, but he's not close enough to do it this lap. Can we sort of see him use that back marker potentially to try and make the move? Meanwhile, Dean Riley's still not past Kieran Vidago, so he's made his way onto the back of the Ferrari, but hasn't quite got enough pace over Kieran to make a clean move.
I think it shows the pace of these guys running at the front, isn't it? The fact that they can have the pace to catch up with them, but they're just all so quick. It's actually making it very difficult for these guys to make the move. But what doesn't detract from is the quality of racing we see. Look at how close Rich Smith is to the back of Jonathan Seville as they go through Copse for the 44th time. Only a couple of laps left in this one, depending on where Robbie Stapleford is on track. We've got no idea where he is because he's off away in the distance and enjoying himself at the front of the grid. But Rich Smith, again, just loses a little bit of time, almost compromises the line through Maggots and Beckett's through Chapel. So he's not going to be close enough, it looks like, to get any moves kind of set up and ready into Stowe. Whether he can get a good run and try it into Vale again, because he did seem to look for the switchback fall, that will remain to be seen. But I think you're right, Toby. It's just a case of when rather than if, because this Pole Simsport Ferrari looks like it's lacking a lot of confidence after that little excursion a few laps ago.
Yeah, although Seville has rallied, hasn't he? He's not dropping back in terms of the time he's losing at the same rate. So, not looking as much of a foregone conclusion it was as it was a couple of laps ago.
No, absolutely, which is always nice to see. It's nice to see he's come back into it. Want to see these battles fought as competitively as possible, and not that I doubt for a second that Jonathan Wills has lacking a competitive edge. Just like you say, maybe got into says we see Milos Stovenkovic for some reason going into the pit lanes. That's going to ruin his chances of a decent points finish. He was 15th at the time. He's going to be dropping out of that, I would imagine. That is. Well, you have to assume he's underfueled the car, which is very surprising, seeing as I know the Zancho Simsport guys do have an engineer. We see Rich Smith going into Brooklands, tries the outside line this time on Jonathan Seville. Again, goes to the switchback move.
Seville's gone wide again,
very wide.
This is now Smith going to look for the cutback. He's got a lot of apex speed. Can he carry it? No, he's not close enough. It was a great idea and it almost worked, but just couldn't carry the apex speed through Luffield to affect that pass down into Copse.
Yeah, it looked like
he's knocking on the door still.
It looked like he had it. It looked like he had it on, didn't he? It just looked like he was doing everything he needed to do to get the move into Copse. Just looking at the lines he's running through there, but he just didn't get the exit out of Luffield onto the straight. But he's so close. He's pushing Seville around parts of this lap, which is ridiculous to see. Really, really impressive stuff from these guys that they're driving so closely, but there's been not a single element of contact whatsoever between these guys. They have dropped off Regan Mitchell and Mantis Povolitis, understandably, because they're battling as hard as they are. And Regan Mitchell just under a second away from Povolitis. It looks like that move is not going to happen. We've got 30 seconds left on the clock. We've just got it. It's just a case now of when does Robbie Stapleford cross the line, whether we get this lap or one more. Dean Riley down the outside going into Stowe, round the outside of Kieran Vidago. That's a ballsy move. It's going to give him the inside into Vale, but look at that.
Surely he's got it done. Down into the Vale chicane, and Dean Riley, can he stay late on the brakes? Is Kieran Vidago back at him round the outside though, and that becomes the inside for the final corner. I keep calling it the final corner. It's not, of course. It is on the Formula 1 layout now, but they're still going. And Riley's got the move done.
Wow, I tell you what, A-star for effort and an A-star for execution from Dean Riley there. That was fantastic stuff.
And an A-star for Kieran Vidago as well. Because he on so many occasions there was a risk of contact there, but absolutely no contact between the two of them. Great.
Brilliant compliance from the two of them. You can see now Robbie Stapleford, winner-elect at this moment. He's on the final lap. The timer has hit 0. It's going to be one more lap. You see Rich Smith just going a little bit too deep into Brooklands, nearly tagged the back of Jonathan Seville, so he's managed to get back out of it. He's got one more journey of this 3.661 mile circuit to try and make the move once more and get himself up into 4th place. But this man has been unchallenged the entire way through. And I talked about it at the top of the broadcast. I thought that people were going to bring the competitive edge to him. I think they have, but he has just brought another level this season. So in this first race, he has been an absolute class above. We know the McLaren is strong around the Silverstone circuit, but in the hands of this young man, that has been an absolutely ludicrous display, and is exactly the kind of start he wanted to get his title defence up and running this season, isn't it, Toby?
Yeah, hasn't put a foot wrong, but at least not that we've seen on stream anyway, and has been lights to flag. And even from qualifying, when he was over a second quicker than anybody else, he was laying down a marker, and that marker has been sort of further laid down, further extended, I would say, in this race. He's been the class of the field.
Absolutely. As he rounds Luffield for the 46th and final time, Robbie Stapleford, as you see, he's got so much time. He can elect to do a little bit of wheel, a little bit of drifting action out of the final corner. But Robbie Stapleford of Sancho Simsport crosses the line to win the first race of the season here in the Simsport Racing GT3 League season number 7. And it's the perfect start for our reigning champion. Mantis Povolitis is still in second place ahead of Regan Mitchell. They're as close as they have been the entire race when they've been this way round. Of course, for the first stint of the race, it was roles reversed and Regan Mitchell was the one sitting in second. Will he try a last-minute move into Brooklands? It's going to have to be a last-minute move. It's not going to be. He's not close enough. Can he get the closing speed into Luffield? Can he look for a little dive at the inside? You would imagine, as you expect, Povolitis just covers the inside. So it looks like it's going to be a second place return for Mantis Povolitis. He's had a season or two out of the Simsport Racing leagues in the GT3s, but he's come back and he's very, very quick indeed and puts in a fantastic space to come through in second. Regan Mitchell of Simsport Racing Apex team rounds out your podium. Rich Smith unfortunately couldn't get the move done. We were talking about it was a case of when rather than if, but he couldn't do it in the end. And Jonathan Seville comes back.
Good recovery from Seville, actually. Good recovery.
Yeah, he did a very good job there. Chris Pinchbeck comes through in 6th place. Dean Riley did get the move on Vidago. We saw that happen. It's a fantastic move. Comes through in 7th. Vidago in 8th. Marcus Hagel and Rasmus Christensen will round out your top 10. And we can finally catch our breath, Toby. It's been a relentless race. And, for all the battles we had at the front, that was fantastic stuff from Robbie Stapleford, because he literally just disappeared, didn't he?
Absolutely.
Incredible stuff.
Yeah, and I said after qualifying, credit where it's due. Okay, we haven't had the battle for the lead that many people were hoping for, but what we have witnessed is a masterclass by Robbie Stapleford. And his rivals behind him certainly kept us entertained with their battles for second onwards.
Absolutely. And one man we can see on the camera at the moment was Francisco Lem, was caught up in a lot of battles, ended up dropping back quite a bit in the end. I think he was about 10 seconds or so behind, 13 seconds behind Hedges in the end. But yeah, fantastic battles all the way up and down the grid this evening. And well, if we get a race like that for the next 5 of the season, I think we'll have a pretty good season number 7, because that was quite the way to start. Robbie Stapleford takes the win here at Silverstone. Mantis Povolitis and Regan Mitchell round out your podium positions. We'll hopefully get to hear from the top 3 in a few moments' time. But yeah, that was the perfect start for the Sancho Simsport man, and he'll be a very happy boy going into the next round at Paul Ricard in a couple of weeks, won't you, Toby?
Yes, that's everyone else has now got 2 weeks to work out how on earth they can catch him, and what upgrades they have to make to their cars to get anywhere near him. But I think we'll wait and see. It's a very different kind of circuit, Paul Ricard. So we'll see which car it favours. We'll see whether we get a different pole sitter, whether we get different cars up there challenging for the podiums, and whether anyone can hold a candle to this man.
Absolutely. We'll hopefully hear from Robbie in a second. I think he's waiting to drop in, so we'll have a chat with him in a moment. Like I say, hopefully we'll hear from the others of the top 3 as well. I know Regan will drop in for a quick chat. I'm hoping Mantis will as well, because whilst Robbie had the quiet one, the rest of the podium positions weren't sorted until realistically the final couple of laps, and that is the beauty of this series and this championship. And like we say, we always get commitment up and down the field, and that is definitely something we had in bunches this evening. So fantastic stuff, and hopefully we'll get to chat with the guys in just a second. Speaking of which, I can confirm that he's dropped in, and we'll go to reigning champion, pole sitter, probably fastest lap taker, and race winner, appropriately taking the number 1 on your car this season, Robbie, and that was certainly a number 1 display, wasn't it? You were absolutely untouchable out there. How was it for you?
It's got a good start, and then just made the gap bigger and bigger and bigger towards the end, and then just brought it home, just coasting all the way towards the end pretty much. And good race, well, by myself anyway. I just got lucky that Riley and a couple of the McLarens got caught up in the rain in quali. So
speaking of the rain, obviously we know it's an equaliser. It's an equaliser for everyone but yourself. I think you were 1.2 seconds ahead on that pole time, which was quite an impressive feat. What was it like? Did you have much practice in the rain before the race went live this evening, or were you going into that blind to an extent?
Totally blind. I was like, I hope it don't rain, because I've heard bad stuff about Macca in the rain, and it rained, and I was like, oh great. I just stuck the same setup I was using for quali, stuck some wets on, and yeah, went out and yeah, poled it. So.
And like I say, it's the perfect start to things. But I'm sure, as you quite rightly said, a couple of the guys who I think we were potentially expecting to see up at the top end of the grid did have some issues in qualifying. I'm sure you're not expecting it to be that simple over the next 5 races.
Probably won't be as simple, but who knows? Anything could happen.
Absolutely. Well, like I say, it was the perfect start and the perfect way to defend, or to start the defence of your season 6 title, Robbie. Congratulations on the win. Congratulations on the fast lap. Congratulations on the pole position and all the other medals you've taken. It's the perfect weekend for you, as they say. And yeah, we'll see you again, and hopefully you'll have a bit more. Hopefully we'll see a bit more competition for you when we come back for Paul Ricard in a couple of weeks' time. Yeah,
thank you, David. Thanks, everyone.
And we'll move over to our second place man, who has somehow managed to drag one of the most difficult to handle cars up onto second place in the grid. Mantis, fantastic drive for me this evening. We know that the car, or the Porsche in the rain, can be pretty handy, and you proved that in qualifying. You were right up in the top 6. You had a fantastic start, and that was it was an eventful race for you, wasn't it? How was it from your perspective?
Well, yeah, eventful, I guess, is the word I should describe it also. Yeah, starting from the qualifying, like I was seeing practice session and I wasn't expecting rain at all. So once I noticed the rain happening, I was kind of a little bit panicked, not sure what to do, because like I didn't have anything for the rain conditions. So I just picked up some random wet setup, which I found out. But it was, just changed fuel and just trying to find the rhythm basically. So it was a little bit lucky, of course, to be like that high off the field while risking like this. So yeah, I mean, that was P2 all the time. I was catching it basically in the qualifying. I messed it up a bit, like I lost like 0.4 of a second in the final lap. So yeah, then I messed up the pit stop in the race. I missed the pit box and things like that. So yeah, and racing in the Ferrari sandwich was a very fun to experience. I mean, wow, it was super tense and fun.
Were you expecting the Porsche to have the pace that you did? Because I mean, I'm completely knowledgeable with any of this sort of thing, but I wouldn't have expected the Porsche to be as quick as it was. But you seem to have it on rails throughout this race, which was quite impressive. Were you expecting that sort of pace to come out this evening?
I mean, I wish it was on rails. It was sliding all the time, especially on the low fuel conditions. I mean, as soon as I hit like 50 liters mark, it started to skate all around. So I was a little bit scared in the, especially in the corners 1 and, maggots, baguettes and things like that. It's like super, super difficult to handle on low fuel. But yeah, so, I mean, it could have been better, but yeah, I mean, the pace was enough at this time. But I guess I was a little bit lucky at this stage, but yeah, quite okay, so to say.
He did a fantastic job. And final thoughts ahead of Paul Ricard in a few weeks. There's a very, very long straight. You know that, so it's not necessarily going to be the Porsche's strong suit. But what are your kind of hopes and expectations going into that? Are you looking for another podium, or just trying to get some decent points on the board?
Really hard to predict actually, because Paul Ricard is pretty difficult to defend actually. I mean, it was difficult to defend today, and even more difficult to defend on Paul Ricard. It really depends on on the gaps which you will have in the beginning of the race. If I'll be able to pull back from the guys behind. I mean, I can try to race for the position. If I will be like in the less than half a second gap, I might be in a big trouble in the straight. So really hard to predict actually. So yeah, we'll see about that.
We'll see you hunting for slipstream at some point throughout that race, I've no doubt. Well, look, congratulations, man. Let's say fantastic effort from yourself, especially in the lesser chosen Porsche, and hopefully we'll see the same for you in a couple of weeks' time.
Thank you.
And then finally, we'll come to our third place man, who was second place for the majority of the first and nearly got second place at the end. Regan, fantastic work from you. Qualifying, I mean, again, if we take Robbie out of it, you were a very impressive pole position. But what was it like spending? Because in theory, you spent the majority of it defending. Was there ever a point where you thought you were going to get second in the end, or were you at the end just kind of settling for third at that point and seeing how it went through?
Hello, yeah. I think qualifying P2 was really lucky for me, because there's 3 or 4 people that I think should have, on dry, would have qualified ahead of me, and probably in race pace also just shot off. So I did a good job in that wet session. But our defending it destroyed my front tyres in the first stint because I'm just under pressure and making mistakes. I chose not to defend against the two undercuts because of that. I was worried that my tyres just in the second stint would not make it to the end. And that decision, it half worked out. I got one position back. I don't know if I would have been able to keep second otherwise.
Absolutely. I mean, obviously I've commentated on you racing for a number of times now, and I've kind of become well reversed to you going very, very deep into a race and making a last minute stop towards the end. Was that ever the plan, or were you always planning to pit around the sort of halfway mark like you did this evening?
Nah, not in the Ferrari round here. I don't. It's never normally the fastest strategy. It's if you need like a cheesy alternate strategy that something like that comes into play, and I didn't think it was appropriate for today, or probably any of the races in this series, to be honest.
Oh, well, I'll mention it in the next one. And again, same as Manchester, Robbie, thoughts ahead of Paul Ricard in a couple of weeks? What's your hopes and expectations going into that one?
Looking forward to it. I don't know what to expect, but I'll give it a good go. Fantastic
stuff. Well, Regan, congratulations again. It's nice to see you on the podium once more. Hopefully we see plenty more of them as the season goes on, and hopefully we'll see you again in a couple of weeks.
All right, thank you.
Well, there we go, Toby. We've heard from our top three. Fantastic to hear from them, and like we say, brilliant run out from everyone on the grid, including themselves. Before we sign off for the evening, any final thoughts from yourself?
Well, on this race that we've seen, certainly. I think it was great. In a 90-minute race, you never quite know whether you're going to be ending up with loads of big gaps between drivers. Far from it tonight. We had battles going right the way down to the final few laps, all the way up and down the field. So a lot of drivers staying really close together, which is great news for us as commentators. But I think this one was a great race. I think it was really clean. And everyone's put on a great show.
Absolutely, and yeah, it was a fantastic one. In terms of what comes up next in the GT3 Championship, we head to Paul Ricard in a couple of weeks, but in the meantime, as you can see on the screen at the moment, we've got a virtual touring car cup, season number 4. Of course, Toby, you're very familiar with this, being running or effectively organising this over the last couple of weeks, so it's again, it's something we're looking forward to, isn't it, in the SSR community now?
Yes, so this is on Assetto Corsa, so the older game, not Competizione, but a lot of very different categories of car you can run. These touring cars are fantastic to drive. They allow for real close door-to-door racing. We've seen it already in a couple of practice races, some tremendous battles going on. So very different sort of format. It's 3 20-minute races. So fast, frenetic, and then we do it all again twice in the evening. So that is coming up. It starts next week, and we're broadcasting that as well. So we'll be running these live next Sunday. There are still spaces available on the grid. So if anyone's out there fancying getting involved in some touring car racing, please do get in touch with us at Simsport Racing and get yourself on the touring car grid for the VTCC, which starts next Sunday.
Absolutely, yeah. Spoken like a true connoisseur of touring cars, and like I said, I'm very much looking forward to that one as well. So your Sunday evenings for everybody watching are sorted for the next 12 weeks. In the meantime, though, like I say, it's been a pleasure commentating on this evening's race. My name has been David Wressell. I've been very pleased to be joined by my co-commentator Toby Owen this evening. Toby, it's been a pleasure having you, and hopefully you'll come back for the next one at Paul Ricard in a couple of weeks. I'd certainly love to have you back. It'd be nice to join you again. And a very big thank you to Steve Proudly, our broadcaster, who's always bringing us all of the best camera angles throughout the racing this evening. But between now and then, it's goodbye from me. It's goodbye from everyone here at Simsport Racing, and we'll hope to see you on Sunday next week for the virtual touring cars when they return for season number 4. Between now and then, have a wonderful rest of the week, and we'll see you again soon.